Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of what if issei was neglected and becomes the god of creation and destruction part 8. Before we start, please go support Ethan1939 for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she call in here because it's translated. So let me clear, this is a male in this story. Part 44, Magic Combat. You can see great destruction all around. The reason for that is that two large dragons were fighting in a fierce battle while issei was fighting against the hooded mage. Issei had a sword fight against the wizard, while in the background, Fafnir launched a large flame of fire at Grendel. "Issei, you're going to die, you bastard," he said while exerting force to break the magician's sword of light. "I know what you're capable of, but I'm also good at combat," he said to separate. "So let's see how good you are, boy," he said with a smile. Issei only clashed swords with the wizard again while the dragons bit each other trying to tear off the jugular. The magician at one point launched a burst of fire that completely covered Issei, but when it dispersed, Issei was intact and with a smile. "Issei, don't you know that dragons are immune to fire?" "Idiot," he said as he took out his dragon wings and his pupils became slanted. In the blink of an eye, issei kicked the magician, making him cross several walls, while Fafnir, with one blow, sent Grendel flying, sending him to his master. Issei and Fafnir fell into a tailspin while delivering a powerful blow to the jaws of their respective adversaries. They both just fell to the ground while they saw both enemies get up. "Grendel? You bastard, it will be fun to devour you," he said while drooling and having a crazy smile. "Issei. How disgusting you are," he said looking at the dragon. "Fafnir? He is a psychopathic boy. He basically has no scruples. He is only interested in fighting and massacring his opponent," he said looking seriously at Grendel. "Issei? Well, they say that pets look like their owner. Maybe that idiot spoils him a lot," he said looking at the wizard. "How about we teach them a lesson?" "Fafnir, it will be a pleasure to kick that crazy bastard's ass," he said as flames came out of his mouth. "Grendel? Well, come here, idiot. I'll wait for you." The dragons roared, so they charged at each other again, this time with the advantage that Fafnir had damaged the dragon's right eye with his claws. Issei only raised his right hand to launch a powerful flare of black fire that engulfed the magician. The mage only covered himself with a barrier, but the flames still caused great pressure on the mage, making him fall to his knees. Issei raised his left hand to create a sword of light and launch it at the wizard. He only dodged the swords, but issei got to his side, giving him a big blow to the face, crashing him against a wall. Issei just smiled, but at that moment he saw Fafnir being crushed by Grendel as the evil dragon sank its teeth into Fafnir's shoulder. Issei quickly created a giant fist made of shadow to hit the dragon's jaw, knocking it away from Fafnir. "Fafnir, thank you," he said while Issei healed Fafnir with his flames. Grendel stood up and Fafnir saw how his jaw was broken, and he was hanging as if he were a puppet. "Grendel? Nudge a bad aho. It hurt me," he said trying to speak, but his jaw was sure to hang, causing Issei to shiver. "Issei? Damn, and to think that you were already ugly and disgusting before," he said looking at how his jaw was hanging. Issei was ready to finish killing the dragon, but at that moment the magician stood up to stop the dragon and Issei and Fafnir. "Stop, Grendel is enough," he said looking at the dragon. "Grendel? Peiho, I want to piss them off," he said looking at the magician. "But you want to be a corpse again? You're still in the tuning stage, Sona? Corpse? Tuning?" At that moment, a magical circle of communication appeared in the magician's ear. "Yes. Okay. Sigh, that's fine, hanging up. Apparently, the white is bothering too. So next time we'll finish this. Grendel. Faf your jaw, Prejama, Jazz, Timito Fafnir. Next time I will kill you," I tried to say. "I'm sorry, it's better to talk without having a whistle in your mouth, idiot," he said mocking Grendel. "Well, since you've come this far, I guess I'll give you a reward by showing my identity," he said with a smile. At that moment the magician took off his hood showing his gray hair along with a mocking smile. "My name is Euclid, Lucifuge," he said with a smile. "Everyone? Lucifuge? Issei? Sorry, who?" he said confused. "Hey, you look like Graphia," he said looking and analyzing the man's face and hair. "Euclid? Yes, in fact, that useless girl is my older sister, and I have a message for her. Sona, what do you want to throw a tantrum because your sister stole your bottle when you were little? He said, looking at the man who only got angry because of what the albino said. Euclid? Shut up, he said, looking at Issei angrily. I promise you that next time he will kill you, Issei. Many have tried it, man. Now those people are food for worms, he said with a smile. Euclid? Don't compare me to idiots, but hey, we'll see you another time, hybrid, he said to disappear in a magic circle. The boys calmed down, but at that moment they felt a great tremor as they saw how everything was falling apart. I say, okay, it's time to go, he said to go in a magic circle with his companions. After leaving in that magic circle, the boys appeared again at the demonic station where Samazazel and Seraphil were waiting for them. Seraphil. Tan, he said, hugging Issei when he saw him. They didn't hurt you, right? She said, worried about Issei. Sona? I'm fine too, if you mind, sister, he said, looking at her sister, checking Issei's body from head to toe. Issei? We're fine. Thanks for worrying about me, Sarakan, he said, calming the girl a little. Azazel, it looks like you had fun here. Several people were terrified by the pile of corpses you left behind, she said, looking at the fact that there were still some corpses to be collected from the place, they say. Yes, well, they asked for it. I'm Skip. After explaining what happened to Azazel and the others, they were somewhat surprised by the information, although they were a little discouraged since Graphia would take what her brother did very badly. I'm Skip, Issei's house mansion, Tiamat. That you fought alongside Fafnir with Grendel, said surprised Issei. Yes, it wasn't that bad, she said simply. Yuri? And not only that, she broke his jaw with one blow, she said, still replaying that memory in her mind. Ella, and you broke his jaw too, that is incredible, she said surprised Issei. It wasn't that bad, I still don't know why the surprise, it's not the first time I faced dragons, she said simply. Do we? Master is much more complicated than that. Lin, let's say evil dragons are more special and powerful than you think. I say. Special and powerful. How much? Bread? You see, the evil dragons are of high category and level, they can surpass us dragon kings. Of course, I still don't think they can beat me or Tiamat, but they are still very dangerous. They are crazy murderers, they kill anyone who gets in their way. Even several ancient heroes had a hard time sealing them, said the dragon, Tiamat. Oh my Issei-sama, he said, hugging Issei tightly while putting his breasts in Issei's face. You faced an evil dragon, and you still talk about it as if it were an everyday thing. I think I love you even more, he said with heart-shaped eyes while looking at Essie. Fafnir? Speaking, I know that boy might pay, he said, looking at Essie. Essie? Ah, if so, well, I lied to you, he said simply. Fafnir? Wah. But you promised, he said, looking at Essie in his chibi form. Essie? There is no way I will give you that, Fafnir. I am sorry for you, he said, trying to ignore it. Fafnir? How can you call yourself a man if you break your promises? Bread? He's right, you can't call yourself a man if you don't keep your word, he said, looking at Issei. At that moment, Issei just approached his ear and whispered what Fafnir wanted as a reward. Bread? You're sick, Fafnir, he said, looking at the dragon. You know that dragons have died for less, right, Tiamat? I think I'm already curious, she said, curious about what Fafnir wanted. Fafnir? Well, then I will no longer be your familiar, Issei. Well, then I'll return you to hell. What do you think, she said, looking at the dragon. Asia? Issei-san, don't be mean to Fafnir-san, said scolding Issei. Yuri? Yes, tell us what it is. Issei. Well, Fafnir's sick man said that if he called him for a fight, he had to give him something in return. And that thing he wants is not very normal, he said, looking at Fafnir. Fafnir? Hers, he said, pointing to Asia. I want it from her, Essie. Okay, now you're going to die, she said while taking out a revolver. Tiamat? And that's it. Fafnir? Well, his panties, she said, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. The girls just blushed at what the dragon said while Lisi just pointed his revolver at Fafnir ready to shoot. Asia? Well, if it was a promise that Issei-san made, I guess I have to keep it, she said while she looked at Issei blushing. The girl only left for a moment to return blushing while she had something in her hand. Asia? Take Fafnir-san, she said, giving her panties to Fafnir while she was blushing. Issei, Asia, you don't have to. The boy couldn't finish since Fafnir, in a parade, snatched Asia's panties while he began to smell them. Fafnir? Sniffing, this is the best, he said while she had a silly and perverted smile, while she smelled Asia's panties. Essie, goodbye Fafnir, she said as she kicked the dragon away next to the XMO his panties. Bread? Who knew that stupid guy was a closet pervert, he said while laughing. Issei. Asia, you shouldn't have done that, he said looking at Asia who was hugging him. Asia? Maybe. But looking at Issei with heart-shaped eyes, now you owe me a favor, and I want you to pay me back tonight in bed, Gigi, she said with a blush. Red. Oh, wonderful play, he said as she looked at him, so she was just blushing as she caressed Issei's abdomen. I'm Skip. After a couple of days, which Issei used to train Gasper harder and spend time with the girls, and Issei can be seen in an indoor pool in one of the many rooms of her large mansion. The boy was just floating in the water thinking, but at that moment, some hands wrapped themselves around Issei's waist, taking him out of his thoughts in the albino. Upon seeing who it was, only paled when he saw Aki next to Kiryu and Caddis, who had some swimsuits. Hotties? Hello Issei-kun, did you miss us? Because I know someone who does miss your little friend a lot, she said touching Issei's package. Kiryu? You know, a few weeks ago Sona Kaichu made us part of his entourage, and now that we are demons we can appear at your house whenever we want. Isn't that great? He said while licking Issei's abdomen. Issei? Shit, Sona. The girls were about to grape the boy, but at that moment they were stopped by Sona and Binia, who also had a swimsuit. Sona? Hello Issei-kun, they said, greeting the boy. It seems like you already know my new recruits, he said, looking at Kiryu and K2's. Issei? Yes, in fact I know them very well, she said, separating a little from both of them. Binia? Hello Issei-kun, he said, arriving with Sona. Little by little the girls arrived to have a good time with Issei. Asia was swimming with Irina and Zenobia, while Fafnir only saw Asia in a somewhat perverted way. Sona was drinking iced tea with Yuri, Tiamat and Hela, and the others were just playing in the water, while Issei was with Gasper and Red. Red? Look at that, he said, showing at Fafnir looking pervertedly at Asia. It seems like someone is trying to snatch one of your girls. It seems that the idiot fell in love with Asia, he said laughing. Issei. If he tries to do anything to him I will send him to hell with Samuel. But for now I will just leave him, he said, looking at Fafnir drinking the water where Asia was like a total pervert, although it makes me a little sad. Asia? Issei sent come play with us, he called Issei, while the girls were behind them looking at him in a perverted way. Issei. Well, I'll be right back, he said to go with the girls. Isara. Red-kun, can you put sunscreen on me? He said while looking at Red. Red? Sure, he said innocently. Issei just had fun with the girls, while Fafnir was still looking at Asia with heart-shaped eyes. At that moment, an idea came to Issei's head. Issei. Fafnir, I'm here to give you a reward for kicking Grendel's ass, he said while he came with a bottle of chlorine, but it said water from Asia to the bottom champion. Sona. Issei. I don't think you'll fall for the girl couldn't finish speaking since Fafnir was drinking the bottle of chlorine like crazy. Then you? I think Issei-kun is giving me a little job to do, he said, she polishing her scythe, expecting Fafnir to collapse at any moment. Asia? Issei-san, you don't have to do that. You are the only one who can touch me and drink my water, she said a little blushing, but Asia's words hit Fafnir all over his heart, depressing him. Issei? I'm sorry, Fafnir, but you're right, he said, hugging Asia in a somewhat protective way. I'm the only one who can touch Asia, he said with a mocking smile. Fafnir only became depressed to go to a corner and lament. Issei, and what did you think? He said, looking at Red. Red? Any dragon would have killed him, but I guess he's fine, he said with a smile. Issei, after playing with the girls for a while, you can see the albino drinking some iced tea with Sona, Yuri, Tiamat and Hela. But at that moment, the door is opened by a kick from Kuroka, who was tired next to Faye. Kuroka and Faye just jumped into Issei's arms tired so he could pamper them. Kuroka? Issei, Naya, I'm married, please pamper me, she said, making Issei caress her head and ears, making her purr. Issei, it seems like you've had a long day, she said, looking at the two. But Faye? Yes, we helped Circerus with some wizards who caused trouble, and apparently one of them summoned an evil dragon. Baroka. Valerie had to face him, and when he was winning, his partner summoned Grinnell. We would have lost if it weren't for those two crazy dragons starting to fight among themselves, she said tiredly. Apparently, Azdaha came to attack us. I say. The great Ainzel gown, he said curiously. Sona? No, Azdahaka, in an evil dragon that is considered extinct. Apparently, after what the Camilla faction representative Cause Brigate said, is trying to revive some evil dragon she said it would be. Bissay. I see, well, I'm glad you're okay, she said, looking at both girls with a smile. Kuroka? You know, I'm a little stressed and I'd like to get rid of all that stress, she said with a flirtatious smile and a blush as she let Issei see her breasts. Issei was about to speak, but at that moment a bucket of water fell on Kuroka, which made the Nakoma scream loudly and dig her nails into the ceiling. Akino. Era, sorry. It was just a little joke. Fufufu laughing while the black-haired girl was still on the roof. Issei just laughed a little watching as Kuroka took out her claws and tried to scratch Akino, while the others just watched with a smile. Part 45 Memories and Visits. A certain sadist can be seen looking at the stars out the window, while she had a nostalgic and somewhat sad look. I say. Akino, what are you doing here at this time? She said, appearing and looking at the black-haired girl. Akino. Ice-kun, well, I just saw the stars and remembered something, she said with a sad look. Issei. You know you can tell me anything, she said, hugging the girl. You look sad, maybe if you share it, you will feel better, she said, looking into her eyes. Issei. Well, do you know anything about my past? Issei. Not much, just that you are Baraquil's daughter and some other things that Ria's told me, he said, looking at the girl. Ikino. Well, this is the anniversary of my mother's death, and I'm a little nostalgic remembering my whole life after her death, she said, something sad while hugging Issei. But let me tell you a story, little more of my past. Bikeno narrates. Bikeno. After my mother was murdered, I ran away without looking back. I didn't want to know anything about my father, but a 10-year-old girl in the outside world does not survive easily. Although after everything that is known your life, I know that you did open it, but I was different. Even so, the only thing I had left was the power I inherited from my father, and the things I learned from my mother, he said, hugging Essie. Bikino. I started spending the money that my mother once gave me. For me it was painful to spend it, but it no longer had meaning since she was not very interested in money, and I couldn't stand the hunger anymore, she said. Remembering that day, sometimes I used the power of spirit purification that my mother taught me to earn some money so I could eat another day. But that attracted attention, he said, sadly. Bikino. So that's why I moved away from humans and started getting closer to supernatural beings. One day, I met my little Oni too. He said with a small smile. One day, I found an old man possessed by an evil spirit. The old man alone, he asked for help while he was being tortured by the spirit, but I couldn't stand it, and I helped him. After that, he only hid me since that old man had a pact with demons that ruled that area. And I didn't want problems, or that they would kill me for freeing his lackey of his curse, he said, remembering the old man crying with happiness when he saved him. Aikino. I hid in an abandoned temple, and there was when I saw Butu for the first time, a cute girl with very beautiful red hair, she said. Remembering Butu, she asked me to come out to chat, but I was a girl scared, and the only thing I could think of was to escape. She followed me and insisted, but I shouldn't expose myself. It was daylight. I had the advantage, and sooner or later she would leave or get tired of running, but the last thing she said filled me with fear. Terror, he said, remembering those little words, she said. A group of monks came to us to negotiate. They are looking for a fallen angel. I don't plan to hurt you. I would like you to explain the situation to me. I can help you. I didn't know if trust her words. They were like my mother's old words. But at that moment, I learned one thing, and that was not to trust anyone. In the end, she left with the consequence that they would find me. She said sadly. Flashback, Monk 1. There it is, the curse that was born from our offspring, the Himajima, stained with the blood of the fallen, she said, pointing at Akino. Elder, I'm not going to let you escape now, Akino, she said to get closer to Akino. Akino? Great uncle, she said, looking at the old man. Elder, I have to get rid of the shame of the Himajima, you understand, right? He said, looking at the girl. The girl just ran away, but the men and monks had the advantage since they were faster. I tried to fight, but they had the advantage. When I thought everything was lost, the little Oni and I appeared to defend her, but Akino's great uncle threatened to kill them. The black-haired girl denied and stood in the way to stop him. The old man said that he would let them live if she died. The girl only accepted on the condition that when she died, she would be buried next to her mother as her last wish. But old man, I'm sorry, Akino, you know you can't do that. You are something that should never have existed, he said, looking at the girl. The girl, upon hearing that, only let out a few tears so that her eyes would lose their light. Akino. I see, she said it simply to let out small tears. The girl could only wait for the man to kill her, but at that moment she heard a familiar voice. Rias. Stop, he said, drawing everyone's attention. I can't allow that, so stay away from her. You dirty monk, she said as she appeared next to several demons. When the girl looked at Rias, she could only recover the light in her eyes while she saved her, and flashed back, Akino. But you saved me. The monks could only respond to their demands since it was their territory. They set conditions so that I could live and said that if they did anything to me, they would exterminate their entire clan. At that moment, I couldn't believe that a demon will save me since his reputation was, let's say, bad. My great-uncle could only leave reluctantly. I was able to keep my mother's surname thanks to her. After that, Rias offered me a home and a family, and after that my friendship with Rias became stronger every day, and after a long time I saw her as a sister, although Fufufu sisters sometimes fight over men, he said, looking at Issei with a small smile, and narration. Issei, I see, and tell me, do you know where your mother is buried? He said, looking at the girl, Akino. Yes, but unfortunately they don't allow me to visit her. But at least no one can say that I wasn't her daughter, she said nostalgically. Issei just hugged the girl tightly as she let out a few small tears remembering her mother. Issei? You know what? She said, looking at the girl. You and I are going to visit her, she said, surprising the girl. Akino, but my clan? Issei? I don't give a damn, those people are a bunch of bastards, not even they will stop me from taking you there. And if any of them try to do anything to you, I will kill every man and woman in that damned clan full of idiots, he said with a smile, looking out to Akino. I promise you. Akino. My I see you in, she said, kissing Issei. You know, I'm a little sad, but I know a way to make me feel better, she said with a flirtatious smile. I say. Whatever my pretty girlfriend says, she said to carry Issei. I'm skipped next day elsewhere, somewhere in Romania. A redhead was lying on a gigantic bed. The redhead only had a photo of Issei in her hand. While she smelled one of her dirty t-shirts, the girl only pouted to roll around on the bed. Something bothers. Rias. Moo, she said, pouting. If I had known that she would be in this gigantic room alone, I would have brought ice, he said, thinking about the boy and all the fun they could have. The servants only come to see if we are still alive and bring us food. Also, the Gothic style makes him look more handsome and hexy. We would be like a pair of lovers in a castle, enjoying each other's bodies. And Rias, don't worry, Rias. You just have to concentrate on your work. He will surely be helping the girls with their contracts or checking that office doesn't kill Kuroka or Faye, if only that, he said, trying to calm down. The girl only left her room to go with Izara, you and Kiba. Izara, what's wrong but you? She looks a little discouraged, she said, looking at the repeat. Rias? I'm worried about Ice. Do you really think leaving him alone was a good idea? She said, looking at the boys. Maybe she can call Azazel-sensei or Ani-sama to take care of him, she said, thinking about the boy. Iwa and Kiba. He says it as if he were a little child, they thought, with a drop of sweat on the back of their neck. Bizarra. A little. I can't stand seeing him with many girls, she said with a cute pout. Dreg. I think you are very unpossessive, mate. When a dragon wants something, he just takes it. That works with males too. Dreg is right. Although that baka attracts more and more girls all the time, she said, somewhat annoyed. BW? Yes, but she knows that she does not do it with that intention, she said, thinking that none of the conquerors of her was trying to seduce the woman, but rather helping her with some problem or altercation in most of her. Kiba? Hey, you're right. In fact, I didn't even try to seduce any of you, he said, analyzing with you how he conquered them. There he is. Maybe I'll fatten him up so he's only mine, she said with a pout. Bizarro? That won't help. He will only have to train for a few hours so that his body would be perfect again as always, she said, thinking about the perfect body of her younger brother. Boo. Well, but we still have the matter of Gasper, quickly changing the subject. Rias? True, I almost lost my composure, she said, thinking about the little vampire, Boo, and Kiba. She seems like a girl worried about her long-distance relationship, they said with a drop of sweat on the back of their neck. Kiba. Don't worry, Issei will just be playing video games as usual or helping the girls with their contracts with wizards, he said, imagining an Issei with Harry Potter, doing an invisibility pose. Rias? Yes, but that also worries me, she said a little nervously. Why? I don't think anything will happen, said something curious. Izara? It's because you're not a girl. What if this happens? Mind of Rias and Izara? You can see some very beautiful women with an excellent body while wearing a kind of witch costume while they were at an altar. At that moment a magic circle appears and Essie comes out of it. Essie. Well, did you invite me? She said, looking at the women. Witch1. O Demon-sama, we need your great body and power to satisfy the libido of all these women, she said, while her friends only saw Essie in a predatory manner while they blushed. Essie. Do demons really do this? She said. She looked at her contract, which is, yes, Witch2. Please, Demon-sama, we can only count on you. Also, this way, we will forget all our evils, and we will live happily, leaving everything bad behind, she said, while she caressed Issei's breasts. Witch2. Although it might take all night, she said seductively. Issei. Well, I guess it's my duty, she said. She started kissing one of the witches. The witch only accepted the kiss with pleasure, while began to seduce each of the witches. End of fantasy. Note: the canon would kill just for this fantasy to become real. Rias. Even if it was just a fantasy, I'm sure something like that would happen. Every time I see him he brings another woman, she said with some jealousy. Boo. I don't think you're exaggerating a bit. That would be impossible, she said with a drop of sweat on the back of her neck. Rias? Yes, of course, it would be impossible to bring the goddess of death from Helheim together with a girl who should be dead, she said, looking at you. Well. Rias? Oh, it would be impossible to defeat one of the dragon kings and drag enemies and then dance with her. Should brother, you make these things complicated for me? Scene change with Issei. After a long and very satisfying night with the girls, Issei can be seen sitting playing video games, while Lazanovia and Kuroka were sitting on Issei's lap, while he alone played with Office. Irina? It's not fair, Zenobia, give us revenge, he said, pouting. Yuri? Yes, I should sit on Issei-kun's lap since I'm his girlfriend. Zenobia? I'm sorry, but we won 2 out of 3, so we have the complete right to sit here, she said, moving her hips a little, making Issei's member move a little. Kuroka? Naya, it seems that something down here moved, she said seductively. Paniko. Get down from there now, he said as he pulled out his claws and threatened to lunge at her sister to scratch her. Kuroka. Naya, is Shirin jealous or something? Fufufu, are you upset that I take away your territory? She said something mockingly. Sarah? No, not for now. She said something annoyed. Paniko? Yes, the territory is neutral for now, but I'm going to take it one day, she said with a cold look towards her sister. I say. Hey, I'm not some kind of territory or combat zone that you can fight over, so calm down, she said, looking at the girls. Kuroka. By the way, has Iskon thought about having kittens with me? She said, looking at Issei seductively. Issei. Well, the boy at that moment could not finish speaking since a magic circle appeared showing the Citri entourage along with 2 more people. Sona? Hello, Essie-kun, we have some guests, she said, so he will show Griselda and a Rubio boy with another black-haired boy. Essie, just one question, looking at Sona, why do you bring visitors without consulting me first? Don't you think it's rude since it's my house, she said, looking at Sona. Sona? Sorry, but they are. The girl couldn't stop talking since Griselda only approached Issei and took him by her cheeks, looking into her eyes. Issei, madam, it makes me uncomfortable, she said, letting go of her grip. Griselda. This is beautiful, she said, looking at Issei. It's a pleasure to meet you, Issei-sama. The entire underworld and heaven is talking about you. It's a true honor to meet my future king and god, she said, bowing to Essie. Essie? Yes, Sona. Who are they and who is the eggnog nun? He said, pointing to Griselda. Griselda. Sorry for my rudeness, and no, I haven't made drinks like that since my youth. It's a pleasure. I'm Griselda, court of the Queen of Gabriel the Seraphim. I'm also Zenobia's former tutor. It's a pleasure, she said with a beautiful smile. Issei. He also Miss Griselda, she said, kissing her wrist like a hare. Griselda? Era. So young and so chivalrous, she said, somewhat blushing at Issei's action. Denovia only stood up to tell them to sit up very formally, which made Issei look at her somewhat mockingly. Griselda? Well, sorry for our very inopportune visit. I was very curious about who would be the new king of heaven and hell, as many murmur, so I took advantage of the fact that I asked Sona-chan to bring us, she said with a charming smile, while two young men accompanied him, one with blonde blue eyes and the other with black hair, but this one had a huge black dog by his side. Nice to meet you, said the blonde in priest's clothes. My name is Dolio Gesualdo, said with a smile. Essie? Damn shitty name, she said, thinking out loud, making the blonde a little depressed. Sona? You are the Joker, right? She said, looking at the blonde. Essie? Joker? No, I don't think so. It doesn't seem like it. You must be wrong. Sona? It's not that. He is the reincarnated human with unparalleled strength. It is said that he is the trump card of the angels, he said, looking at the blonde. Red? Someone said that there is someone with unparalleled strength, she said, appearing on the scene with Kizara. Kizara? Aura. It looks like we have some lovely visitors, he said, looking with a smile at Griselda and the others. I say. Okay. It's already making me nervous that you guys are always together, he said, looking at both of them. I say. Julio? Wow, the great Red, it is a great honor to meet the King of Dragons, he said, looking at the dragon. Red? Yes, whatever you say, but they said you were very powerful. Is that true? He said, looking at the blonde Julio. That's right, Mr. Red, I'm very strong, but Red? Well, I haven't fought with anyone who could withstand a couple of my blows other than Issei, so get ready, he said to try to attack the angel, Griselda. Era, what makes a dragon so annoying and rebellious in her home? Issei saw me, she said, looking at Red with some disgust. Red, who are you calling an annoying bustin' dragon? He said to try to attack both of them. Before he could touch them both, chains appeared to trap the dragon, surprising Griselda and the other two guests. They say, Red, I told you can't do that. I don't care if your bucking dragon instincts tell you you're in my bucking house and you won't cause a disaster, or else I'm going to kick your ass and send you back to the dimensional rift, said annoyed Red. Hi, he said, something scared. The boys were just shocked by Issei's change of attitude and how easy it was for him to stop the king of the dragons. Issei. Sai, forgive him. As you must know, dragons get excited when strong people are around, he said, while watching Office kick Red in the face while he was still chained to the ground. Griselda could only smile, while the blonde in priest's clothes looked at him with some curiosity. Griselda? Era, you are just like him, she said, looking at Issei, although with a change in attitude. Issei, before he could ask, noticed how Aikino looked at the black-haired man who was accompanying Griselda. But before the nun could introduce him, Kuroka spoke. Kuroka? This is weird, Naya. Valerie would be happy to see you if you were here, he said, looking at the black-haired man. Issei? Acquaintance of yours? Kuroka. He is /dog, the possessor of the Canis Lycaon, the third person to force Vali to use his juggernaut drive, Jijijiji. The first would be you and Azara-chan, but if we talk about species, He would be the first human before Cao Cao. Issei. I see, he said, looking at the boy addressed as a bartender. It's a pleasure. My name is Yuzik Tobio. I came on behalf of the former Governor Azazel. This here is Jin, he said, pointing to the dog. My sacred gear is its own entity, so it has its own instincts, I hope, and we get along well, he said with a smile. Sona. The two best pieces of the factions. This is very interesting, Tobio. So Issei-san, can I ask you something? Issei. Let me guess, you want to face my truth? He said, looking at the boys. Julio? How? I say. That would be the only reason why the best warriors of Grigori and heaven could come to see me. Sigh he okay, but he said while snapping his fingers, making his suit appear next to Yui and Lin, I won't be nice to you, he said with a sadistic smile. Griselda? Oh, the weapon created by the King of Demons and God, he said, looking at the two swords girls on Issei's back. They both took their human forms to see Griselda. Yui. Nice to meet you, Griselda-san. Lin. It is a pleasure to meet one of the pieces of my creator's daughter, she said, bowing next to her sister, Griselda. They are so beautiful, he said, hugging both girls. You can see that they are legendary weapons. They are very cute, Okino. Well, we better put up a barrier since this battle is going to attract the attention of many. Sona? It will be the best. Hafner? Asia-tan, please stay behind me, he said, trying to protect Asia. Asia? Sorry, but I prefer to be with Issei-san, Fafner-san, she said, hugging Issei, which made Fafner depressed. Issei? Fafner, stop being so stupid and faggot, and find another girl so he'll never pay attention to you, she said, looking at Fafner in a corner with a depressive aura. Red? I want to fight too, he said with emotion. I say? No, that won't happen, and if you do, you'll probably get carried away and destroy the barrier, he said, making Red depressed. Office? You're pathetic, he said, looking mockingly at Red. Griselda. Issei-sama is friends with several dragons, she said, looking at the three dragons. Issei. Well, I'm one too, and so is my sister because of Drake's idiot, she said, thinking about the dragon inside the booster gear. Hobio? You are also a dragon. I'll explain it to you later. Now we're going to fight before I go to sleep. He said something boring. Jijijai, do you want us to sleep with you? He said in a flirtatious manner. I better stay awake. Art 46 Monster Combat. Harmelia Territory Cafeteria. Azazel narrates. Azazel. The land of vampires is very different from what I remembered. Before, they dressed in Victorian costumes and had banquets every night while dancing to the rhythm of the orchestra. But the banquets were of blood, or rather of people, although I think that's why they began to exclude themselves from the world. After all, although they had immense power, they still had a great weakness for the sun, which made them easy targets for the catapults that destroyed their castles. Anyway, I'm glad that things have changed. Now they feed through a blood bank and other methods that I am not as problematic as before. All the movies I saw with this have been changing my thoughts a little about vampires, but for now they are not as bad as I remembered, or not like the movies show. Azazel? Sigh, it's been a while since I lived with a pretty vampire, he said with a smile. Azazel? The territory is covered by a thick fog that prevents the sun from passing through, and that makes it very cold, although since they are vampires they don't feel it. I only went out for a while to clear my mind a little. A while ago that Rias along with Azara, Yu, and Kiba have not returned. I am starting to worry a little. Although they are with Azara, who has a lot of power, I can't help but worry. Maybe she will call her Prince Charming to go rescue her princess, or in this case, Princess's Sai. I'm getting too old for this. I just wish I was in a bar drinking with a boy, and maybe with Sertsix and Ajuka, he said, thinking with a small smile. Azazel? The Teep's territory is not very far from here. In fact, they have a direct road, but its borders have been guarded since the conflict between those two clans. That reminds me, the ruins of the Aran Castle is also in this country. Maybe go and learn a little more about Azara and Ozzy's ancestor. End narration. Azazel was still in his thoughts, but at that moment he heard a familiar voice that took him out of his thoughts. Valerie? Did you miss us? He said, drawing Azazel's attention, while next to him were Baiku and Arthur. Azazel? Not really much, but I see that you do to me, he said. Looking like a vampire who was supposed to watch over the boys was knocked out on the ground, Aiku? When we leave he will wake up peacefully, he said, looking at the knocked out vampire with a mocking smile. Azazel? And tell me, Valerie, what did you think, Ozzy Dahaka? Valerie? It was better than Pluto. He's somewhat more entertaining, he said with a smile. Ika? Are you entertained? They almost killed me more than once. It's been a long time since I fought like that. Evil dragons are very dangerous, he said with a shudder. Valerie? Yes, but I heard that issei fought against one, in fact against Grendel, he said, thinking about the boy. Azazel? If in fact he broke his jaw it was a blow, he said, surprised to the three. The three? What? Azazel? Well, he fought against a wizard and used Fafnir against Grendel. But when Grendel had Fafnir on the ropes, issei hit him with a blow that broke his jaw, he said, imagining the scene of issei breaking the dragon's jaw. Valerie? Really? So the wounds Grendel had were from issei and Fafnir? Azazel? Yes. And he also faced 400 magicians, 200 golems, 64 familiars, and even legendary beasts that would devour men with a single bite, and even evil beasts that were supposed to be extinct. Well, now yes, they are extinct, he said, thinking about the boy who was proud of him. Each one of them is dead. Only one survived, and he is totally traumatized because of his say, he said, while looking at the silver-haired girl, who was just blushing. Valerie? Someday I'm going to buck him, he said with a blush and a perverted smile. Aiku? Valerie, control your impulses. Albion, partner, control your pheromones. You are not in a good place to go into heat, he said, giving the girl away. Arthur? I don't know whether to feel safe or insecure that Leif is staying with him, he said a little nervously. Azazel? Don't neglect your sister like that. Remember that he is king of the harem, he said with a smile. Ika, did you leave your sister and Kuroka with issei? He said, looking at his friend Arthur. Well, they were tired from our last battle with Grendel, so they said they wanted to go to issei's house to rest because they said it was a fun place. He said simply. Azazel? It seems that issei will be your future brother-in-law. He laughed like crazy. But issei was in the courtyard of his house looking at his two opponents. Well, they were somewhat nervous because of issei's cold gaze. Griselda. I'm a little worried about Issei-sama, she said, looking at the boy. Yuri? Don't worry, nothing will happen to him. He will just kick both of your butts, he said simply. Rose was? Issei-kun has the power to create a new world if he wants it, and he can destroy it just as well, he said, looking at Isaac calmly. Ravel? Issei-kun is very strong, he said happily. Sarah. And very handsome and hishy when fighting, she said with a silly smile and a blush. Became. And he's also a stud in bed, he said the same way. All the girls just blushed, but Office was a little upset and jealous, along with Kuroka and Faye. Brad? I'm still upset because he won't let me fight, he said as if he were a child, partially a territory restaurant. And Azazel can be seen drinking tea with Valerie, while Baiku and Arthur ate instant noodles that they smuggled in with magic. Azazel only saw beautiful women passing by through the window, but at that moment something came to his mind. Azazel? Valerie, can I ask you something? He said, get the girl's attention. Is it possible to resurrect someone with the power of the Holy Grail? Valerie? The Holy Grail is something very powerful with the power to even change the course of life itself. It can even take a soul and revive it if it can. It is an artifact that can even be equivalent to a wish that can grant the whatever, he said, looking at the crow, but it also depends on that person's religion, so completely reviving someone would be very inaccurate. Didn't you see the movie that Issei showed us when a guy tried to revive his wife? Azazel? Yes, a zombie invasion has started. I know, he said tiredly. Arthur, the girl? Ico? Which girl? Arthur? The one Issei swallowed from Helheim? Aiku? Tehela? Arthur? Yes, she was the guardian of Helheim, and not only that, she also brought another person from there and revived him. Azazel, are you talking about Rainer? Valerie? Did Issei revive someone? Azazel? That's right, he did it with his power as the god of creation, and not only that, he also removed the curse from Hela, Didn't they tell you, Valerie? I don't care about women who get in my way to prevent me from sleeping with issei, he said simply. Azazel? Well, he revived someone, but I don't know how far he can go since maybe he has a limit, he said thinking. Iku? And apparently he also has the power of a dragon god, so he must be more than powerful, he would be almost invincible. Valerie? Don't say that about issei, you're going to make me go into Hades, said thinking about the albino Albion? Companion calmed down, with issei. The place was tense, both of issei's opponents were just a little nervous, while he had a small smile on his face. Aikino? Okay, start. Both boys jumped to attack issei hand to hand, but the fists of both of them only grabbed and then were slammed into the ground. Issei just looked at them with some mockery as they got up and walked away. Issei. If you only know how to do that, let me tell you that you are pathetic, he said with a smile. Sona. Oh no, he said looking at Issei. Briselda? What's happening? Irina? Issei is trying to make them upset. Now Issei is trying to make them use all of his power. Red? That's right, boy, show them that you are my pride, he screamed as he watched Issei fight. They both only frowned a little to launch themselves against Issei again. The blows that they tried to inflict on Issei were only easily dodged, surprising Griselda. Griselda? It seems like she just plays with them, surprised by Issei's ability. Issei at that moment only gave a strong blow to both of their faces, sending them flying a couple of meters. Issei. Yawn, how boring. I would have been better off hunting renegade demons. It's more fun, he said with a mocking smile. They were both already getting annoyed, and Issei looking at that only made him smile wider. Issei. Well, since you guys are so boring, I guess it's my turn to attack, he said, looking at how both boys were getting ready. So, let's dance. Saying that, Issei only disappeared in the blink of an eye to appear next to Tobio, and gave him a powerful blow that made him crash against the barrier that the girls put up. I see, seeing that created a spear of light, but Issei put his right palm on his abdomen to make a large flare of black fire, throw him meters back. Both boys only got up with difficulty. Dulio had burns all over his body, while Tobio had his nose broken, causing a trickle of blood to come out of it. Issei. It seems like you're not trying very hard. Tell me, what percentage of all your power are you using? Both, 60%. Issei. Wow. So they are really strong, she said with a mocking smile. Tobio. And you? Issei. He only 10%, he said, so that the eyes of both of them along with Griselda's widened. Issei at one point disappeared again to hit Tobio again, sending him to the sky. Issei only took out his revolver and fired, but the bullets were repelled by Dolio's magical shield. Issei? Come on, they say they are very strong warriors. Don't disappoint me, said mockingly. Borum. Jin, he said so that his dog would jump into combat. The fallen angel's dog just watched Issei as he grew until he looked like a lion. Issei. Apparently, a kitten came to fight a lion. Cerberus. From Issei's shadow came his trusty three-headed dog that intimidated Tobio's dog a little. Cerberus just launched himself without any fear so that his three heads began to bite Jin. Issei only took out his two swords to begin a fight with magic. Sona. I think this is going to get out of control, I said, looking at Issei's sadistic smile. Baiki no. I think I got wet fufufu, he said, looking at Issei's smile. Issei rushed at full speed towards both of them, while they only created a spear of light to defend themselves. Issei went against Ilio, clashing attacks. Both just looked at each other, while Issei used more force, burying the angel's feet a little in the ground. Tobio took advantage of the fact that Issei had his back turned to him to hurt him, but Issei saw the fallen man's attack coming to block it with Lin. Issei? Hey, this is getting fun. Issei's pupils at that moment were torn so that he gave a big push, claiming both of them. Issei, when he pushed both boys away, only smiled so that the boy made a small cut on each of their cheeks. Issei just looked at them both with a smile, while they did not understand the reason for the smile, but at that moment they felt how his entire body collapsed. Issei, sheathing both swords, 1,000 divine cuts. When the swords clicked, Everyone could see how the bodies of both were filled with cuts, while large jets of blood came out of both of them. Both boys just fell to the ground while bleeding to death, and Issei only saw that with a smile, that for a certain black-haired woman was beautiful. Issei. Looks like I won, he said. Also looking at Cerberus having defeated Jin. And music, Asil only raised his hand to heal them both with his flames, leaving them as good as new. Briselda, that was very surprising. Yuri. Wow. I never saw Asil do that attack, he said. Well, the boys only saw how Tobio and Dolio were depressed by their defeat. Asil? Yes, I created it a couple of days ago, he said with a smile. Briselda. This is everything I had expected from the next king of the archangels, she said looking at Essie. Red? I'm so proud of you, boy, he said with a big smile. Sara. Well done, Issei said happily by Kino. Era, I really like that charming smile, she said while hugging Issei's chest. Could you show it to me alone? He said in a flirtatious tone. Issei. Maybe another day, he said looking at the other girls who were jealous. Belio? If it was a good battle, he said, bowing a little to Issei. Tibio? Likewise? Issei? Yes, well you guys have a long way to go to beat me, but maybe I can help you. He said looking at both of them. Both? And Izario? Issei? Sure, besides I'm not the only one who wants to see how strong they are, he said pointing at Red. Red? Of course, I would like to see what they are like after our training. Surely all their skills will evolve and they will be much stronger, he said with a smile. Both? Yes, please help us improve our skills, both said Issei. Sure, but for now just rest. Thobio's dog just looked at Cerberus with admiration, while Cerberus just stroked his head a little with his paw. After that the boys just went to rest from their long day and also got to know Issei's 3 guests a little better. Heart 47 Little Love Story. Hours before the Battle of Issei, you can see one girl looking at herself in the mirror while she was surprised. When the girl saw her hand, she saw how she was rotting. Little by little, she noticed how she was pale and her bones were visible. Further, Ella. But how, she said looking at her hand, to say is supposed to get rid of my curse. The girl only shed a few tears while remembering her father's old words. Flashback. Loki, you are the ultimate weapon and your curse will always stay with you. And flashback, the goddess only wiped away her tears to go out and see a certain blue-haired dragon. Tiamat. This is amazing, she said, watching Hela's curse appear again. Hasn't Issei-sama cured you of your curse? He said looking at the goddess. Hela. She did it, but maybe my curse was just reset by Issei's power as she said she would be. Tiamat. And you can't ask him to do it again? Hela. No matter how many times I do it, it won't change, it will just reappear, or so it created. Tiamat, you have thousands of treasures, don't you have any to help me? Tiamat? Hela, I'm not sure, she said a little worried about her friend. Hela. I understand, sniff sniff, she said, starting to shed tears, but at that moment Rainer along with Garment entered the place. Rainer? Hela, you can't give up, he said, arriving next to Hela's dog. Issei-kun didn't take you out of Helheim, so that you would give up that easily, she said while Garm barked supporting the fallen one. I'm sure that if you tell Issei, he will get a solution. When Hela heard that, she remembered some words from Issei, the words that Issei told her that he would protect her and always support her. The girl only shed a few more tears when she remembered his beautiful words. The goddess only wiped away her tears to see what Tiamat would be like. Hela. Well, you're right, I won't give up that easily, so tell me, do you have a treasure that can help me? She said looking at the blue net. Tiamat, maybe I will have to send a message to my boys, and we will have to go by teleportation, because if the evil dragons discover us, we will be in trouble, he said smiling, and if you want later, we can tell Issei, he said hugging the girl. I'm Skip. Next day, you could see an essay on the roof of the school thinking, since on Saturday he would have a date with Yuki, and the boy already had a lot of problems with his new guests, the boy was just still in his thoughts. But at that moment he heard something that made he exulted a little. Extra? I like a kino anasama, please go out with me, said a boy bowing. Issei just frowned upon hearing and seeing that Issei didn't want any boy to do that kind of thing. Maybe it was because he was a dragon now, and maybe he became a little more possessive, but Issei was jealous seeing that another boy liked him. One of his girls. Akino. Era, I'm sorry, but I already have a boyfriend, she said, making that boy's heart break into 1,000 pieces. Seeing that, Issei only smiled with some satisfaction. Of course, he felt bad for the boy, but he also felt happy that Akino had rejected him. Issei just watched as the boy ran away while he cried, and Akino just sighed to go back. But Issei quickly went down to take Akino from her arm and put her against the wall. Akino? Ice-Kan, she said confused, but the girl couldn't think since Issei kissed her, surprising her a little. Issei? That bothered me, he said looking at Akino. Akino? Era, does it bother you that other boys are attracted to me? He said she with a smile. Issei? Yes, it bothers me, maybe it sounds very selfish. But he said to look into the girl's eyes. You are only mine, Akino, he said to kiss her again. Akino only returned the kiss while little by little both caressed each other's bodies. The kiss progressed to kissing the other's neck, and Issei began to touch the girl's breasts and butt. Akino, and what are you going to do about it? He said, moaning while he felt Issei's hands caressing his attributes. Issei. Whispering in her ear, I'm going to take you here and now, he said, so that the girl only moaned when she felt Issei touch her breasts. Akino? Ice-kun, he is a very possessive boyfriend. If I don't take care of myself, he could even take me while I sleep, he said as she hugged Issei. Issei? Well, if I do we would be even, don't you think, he said looking at the girl who just smiled. Time skip. An Issei and an Akino can be seen hugging each other while they were both lying on the grass hidden from each other's sight behind some bushes. Akino? Era, I didn't know that Ice-kun could be so possessive, she said lying on Issei's chest. Apparently you're a jealous boyfriend, she said with some mockery. Issei. Well, I already told you that it bothers me that other boys are telling you their feelings, she said hugging the girl tightly. I just am afraid, she said so that the black-haired girl would be a little surprised. Akino? Fufufu. Ice-kun is a nice jealous boyfriend, she said kissing the boy. I think I like that side of Ice-kun a lot, she said with some mockery. Fufufu. Issei. Don't make fun, she said something sad. And he is also a shy boyfriend when expressing his feelings, he said to kiss the boy, but I love that part of him, he said with a look and smile full of love. Issei, I love you too, and I love all of you, Akino, he said kissing the girl. Both boys just hugged each other for a while longer to return to their classmates, although they were a little more attached than before. I'm Skip Knight, Issei's house mansion. All of Issei's companions can be seen having dinner, while a Red fought with Griselda. Red. What the hell do I care that God dislikes dragons? Dragons are powerful and indomitable beings. That's what makes us special, he said looking at the nun, Griselda. As God once said, dragons are beings that do not follow rules, and that is the opposite of what God had as a brave new world. Bread? Well, the first king of the demons didn't think the same way, he said, surprising everyone a little. He was a friend of mine, and he always liked to break the rules with me, he said, remembering the old moments of him. Issei. Is that why you said that I reminded you of a friend of yours? Brad? That's right, we always broke physical and temporal laws, he said proudly. We loved it, and always at the end of the day we watched a beautiful sunset while having a drink. Issei. Well, it doesn't sound that bad, he said thinking and imagining what that would be like. Griselda. I didn't hear it, Issei-sama. You're just trying to corrupt his goodness with senseless rebellion, he said she while looking at the dragon. Red? It was the best, and if there were beautiful women on the way we did it until we were tired, he said releasing a small tear. What memories? Asia? So Red Sand was a friend of the first demon king, she said somewhat amazed. Yui? Yes, although they never let me go with them since they said that it's a time between men. Women can't come, she said, imitating Red's voice. Red, the time between best friends and men is bleeding. The fool of God never wanted to come with us since he said that was wrong, but I told him pedo and we both left without him, he said, remembering how they both left without God to his men's night. Issei. That sounds nice, she said with a smile. Griselda. Disgusting dragon, your words corrupt Issei. Sama's young mind, I'm going to have to exterminate you so that doesn't happen, he said, while creating a spear of light. Bread? Well, come here, I will send you to your mistress in one fell swoop, he said, getting ready to fight. Isara, Red Queen. Don't do that, it's wrong to fight in houses other than yours, he said, giving the dragon away. Besides, you don't remember what issei told you if you tried to fight at home, he said, pointing to an issei who was ready to make the chains come out of him and open a dimensional breach to throw the dragon there. The dragon only calmed down a little, seeing how issei was not going to hesitate to return it to the crack, while Griselda, upon seeing that, only smiled somewhat mockingly to calm down as well. I'm Skip. You can see a black-haired woman sleeping peacefully. But at that moment she wakes up when she doesn't feel issei in the bed. The girl only gets up while she was leaving the room. When the girl left, she only saw an issei looking at the stars. Aikino? Do you miss Rias? He said. Call the albino's attention, issei? I will, yes, but that's not the park I'm here, he said, looking at the girl. I was just thinking about everything that's happened lately. And I'm trying to clear my head, he said, to return to watch the stars. Aikino? Everything that happened, issei? Well, since I became what I am now, my life has been more hectic than normal. That doesn't bother me at all. But I only think about what I would be like today if I hadn't met you. In my childhood, or what would have happened if I had not met Yui and Lin. He said, thinking. Baikeno? Well, maybe you would have been a normal boy, she said, approaching issei, just an ordinary boy or something else. Who knows? Issei? Yes, but tell me, Aikeno, what did you feel and think when that boy confessed to you? He said, looking at the girl. I thought about you. She said, looking at the boy all this time, and remembered how you died. What would happen if one day, sniff sniff, you die and you leave her alone like when she was a child, sniff sniff, ice cunt. I never thought I would meet someone who loved as much as you, someone who I actually love with all my being, he said, letting out some tears every time you kiss me or feel jealous. That makes me happy because I know you still love me, he said, hugging the boy. I'm also afraid, Ice-kun, of losing you, or that you'll get bored of me and just abandon me, sniff sniff, because The girl couldn't finish since issei only kissed her. The girl could only return the kiss while her heartbeat accelerated. Issei. Okino, I'm afraid too. I always am, even if it doesn't seem like it. I'm afraid that one day I won't be able to return to you. When Samuel's blood entered my veins, I could only think of one thing, he said, looking the girl in the eyes. And you. In Rias, Zenobia, Yuri, Asia, and the others, I was afraid of abandoning them, but I will no longer have that fear as long as you stay by my side, he said, hugging to the girl, because I love you, Akino Himajima. The girl lonely felt how her heart was beating harder and harder, and hearing the boy's last words only made her shed tears, but this time, of happiness. They both just melted into a kiss, while Okino let out some happy tears. They both just melted into a kiss while Akino let out some tears of happiness. Note. Imagine him with white hair, Akino. I love you too, my Ice-kun, and I will always be by your side, she said to kiss the boy again. The couple's tender kiss little by little was increasing in level. Akino began to run her hands over Issei's marked abdomen while he touched the girl's firm bud. Issei just got tired and picked up the girl in a bridal manner to take her to her room since Issei's room was full of girls. Lemon skipped, please read it on website. Time skip next day. You can see an issei sleeping peacefully. The boy was between two large pillows of meat, and these were Akino's big fluffy breasts. The boy had definitely gotten a fetish for breasts. Akino. My cute Ice-kun, I will always be by your side, and when I am the mother of your children, I will be completely yours, she said, kissing Issei's head while he was alone hugging him. Issei just smiled as he slept as they snuggled into the fallen girl's breasts like a child being hugged by her mother. Time skip. When Issei woke up, he was only greeted by Akino's charming smile. Issei only blushed a little, but he kissed the girl's lips as a good morning. Both boys left the room and went to bathe together like a married couple, and then went down to have breakfast. They were both just having breakfast quietly while the girls were totally jealous of Akino. Asia and Irina tried to be indifferent and ignore what they had both done last night, while the other girls looked at Ase with a Yandra look, but Zenobia and Yuri were whispering something. With Akino? Zenobia? What? It got bigger. Yuri? Can it be bigger than it is? The Kino. That looks like fufufu, she said with a smile and a blush. Griselda. Bigger than what? I asked curiously. I say. Nothing, just they are talking about other things, you don't have to pay attention to them, he said nervously. Master became bigger and stronger, he said with a flirtatious smile. Lin, we would like to try and see how big it got, he said looking at Issei predatorily. Aikino? Fufufu, I'm sorry, but Ice-kun is all mine today, she said to kiss Issei lovingly. Asia? That's not fair, Akino's and I also want to be with Issei-sen, he said pouting. The girls just started fighting as usual, but a Red came down smiling next to Kizara with a beautiful smile. Kizara? Good morning, he said very smiling. Red? Good morning, he said just as smiling. Seeing that, Issei just looked at Red with a dead and soulless look. Red only got upset when he saw Issei's look, but some chains only trapped him, preventing him from doing anything. Issei, I offered you my friendship and you spit in my face, he said kicking the dragon. The dragon just fell to the ground while his companions could only see that, somewhat nervous. But a certain dragon lowly would only smile and hope that Issei would kill his rival. Viscera. Issei, wait, he said to try to stop the boy. Issei just snapped his fingers so that several swords made of light appeared above the dragon, terrifying it. Issei. This will teach you not to mess with other mothers, you dragon bastard, he said to make Issei's swords within a centimeter of sticking into the man's skin. Before the sword stabbed Red, the older chestnut woman got in the way to prevent the dragon from dying, but the sword stopped before killing the woman. Issei, Oka-san, please get out of the way. I have to kill a stinky dragon, he said looking at Red. Sara. Issei, Red-kun and I didn't do anything, we just chatted until the next day, that's all, he said, preventing the man from being killed. Issei? Sure, he said looking seriously at the two, both. Yes, they said nervously. Issei just sighed to calm down and free Red, but the dragon was still terrifying because of Issei's attitude. Issei. Red, if you try to do something with my mother, I'll give you some advice, he said with a smile that later changed to a cold look. Don't do it, Red. Hi, she said something scared. After that scene the boys continued their meal, but a certain dragon Loli and Nun were making fun of how the king of dragons was scared by Issei. Skip Issei can be seen training alongside Gasper and Sagi in the courtyard of his house mansion. Issei didn't have any problems with Sagi training with them, but the problem was that Sagi looked at him a little strangely. Issei. Okay. What's wrong, Saji? You've been seeing me for a while now. Saji? Well, Edo. Asper. Saji-senpai has been looking at the strange maracas that you have on your neck, he said innocently, while pointing to one of the hickeys that Akino gave him. Did Vampire-senpai bite you? Issei. Shit, he said, looking at the several bite marks that Issei had on his neck. No. But similar, he said to cover his marks a little with the collar of his trench coat. Time skip. After the training of the three boys, you can see all of Issei's companions in the VIP room of the mansion, while in the center of the table, you can see a hologram of an Azazel. Issei? Well, what's wrong, Azazel? Azazel? Hello, guys. The girls seemed a little upset when they answered, Tell me what happened with you. Or did you conquer another girl? He said curiously. Essie? Not that I remember, but I have a suspicion that it was what made them upset, he said, looking at a certain black-haired woman who had a smile from ear to ear. At that moment the fallen man noticed some marks on Essie's neck, and he just started laughing uncontrollably. Azazel? I see, trouble in paradise. Well, I only recommend that you wear a scarf, he said with a mocking smile. Issei? Shit, he said covering his neck. Azazel? Well, let's get to the point. You see, apparently there was a movement on the Teep's side. The border of both territories is a chaos. It could be said that there was a coup d'état in the Teep's faction. Probably Rias, Kiba, and your two brothers are involved in that, and I haven't really been able to contact them. Boy, I know you don't really like acting like Prince Charming, so. Issei. Wait, are you telling me that I can enter vampire territory without any problems? Azazel? Yes, why? Issei at that moment only smiled to snap his fingers. The entire suit he wears had changed to a more formal and much older but elegant one along with a hat, but what made him look special is that he had a crucifix as a necklace, while his revolver had a cross drawn on it, and in his pockets, Although they were not visible, he had some stakes stored. Bess. And what are we waiting for? He said with a smile. Elsewhere, you can see 3 female figures on a mountain. The change of season had hit that area, and you can see how the snow was falling, while steam came out of the mouths of the 3 female figures as they sighed. At that moment a girl with a spear appears and threatens the mysterious female figures. Yumi, what are you doing here? You know where they are, right? He said, pointing his spear at the headed women. Ella. Of course we know, he said while his dog growled at the girl with the spear. Calm down, Garm, as a friend. Yumi? Garm, you are the goddess that this issei Hayatu took out of Helheim, she said, surprised. Ella. Is this how you receive your guests? Yumi? Sorry, Timat-sama doesn't have many visitors. The last thing he told us was to kill everyone who entered his territory. But tell me, did that boy do something bad to my Ojusama? She said she worried about Timat. Hella. Well, you could say yes, but she has said many more things to him according to what I heard, she said, a little blushing. Yumi? If he did something today too. The girl couldn't finish speaking since she heard a familiar voice. Tiamat? That's enough, Yumi. Put down your spear, she said, coming next to Rainer, while she was dressed in a somewhat revealing but hashy set of winter clothes for anyone to see. Yumi? Tiamat saw me, she said, somewhat blushing at how her mistress was dressed. Why does she dress in such an indecent way? Tiamat, do you like it? She said, modeling her clothes. I wanted to use it for issei in winter, but I think I'll give him a surprise when she comes back, she said, imagining issei tearing her clothes to take them. Yumi? Mu pouting, issei Hyoa, do you will pay for corrupting my Ojusama. In another side, in a room, you could see a group of monks dressed in black robes with a pentagram in the center, while they lit black candles and made dark chants. On some steps above you can see an altar where a monk was who seemed to be the leader since he had a mask made from the skull of a goat. Brothers, we have been rejected by the Council of Magicians. They refused to help us with our rituals that we formerly performed in their honor. The demons have abandoned us. Not even hell itself accepts us. It is time to invoke the ancient gods, those who existed before time, he said, showing a leaf that seemed half burned and wrinkled. But this one of the old pages of the book, the Necronomicon. Let's bring madness back to our plane, she said, while the others cheered. Part 48, Land of Vampires. After Issei's outfit change, the albino can be seen checking each of the things he would take to go hunting vampires, while an Azazel explained the situation. Azazel? According to the senior leadership of the Carmelia, apparently the person who leads the teepees was replaced after the coup. Dead at apparently the head of the teepee's house escaped from the capital, he said seriously. Okino? For the head of the peep's house to have to flee, it must have been something big to force him into that. Sona, it is most likely that Kao's brigade will intervene due to the Holy Grail incidents, he also said it would be. Azazel, if the Peeps clan and Carmilla avoided contact with the outside factions to solve their problems, but Kao's brigade took advantage of the situation to infiltrate. Although it would rather be the first time, he said, a little tired anyway. I am planning to enter the Peeps' territory from the Carmilla base. It seems I need your help, he said, looking at the boys. I see. And when not? He said with some mockery. Sona, are you sure about this? He said, looking at the albino next to Gasper, that they had several items while making a list that said, vampire hunting items, while Lesha, Irina and Zenobia watched with curiosity, while Lissy only had an indelible smile on his face. Irina? Issei-kun, crosses can hurt others, remember that they are demons, she said. Well, the boy held a crucifix in his hand. You are too, but since you are also an angel, it doesn't affect you. Issei. True. You're right. I guess I'll just take the garlic, the holy water and the silver, he said, while seeing everything in the multiple pockets of his trench coat. Asper? But Senpai doesn't have any money, he said, looking for the money. Issei. I have it right here, he said, pulling out the revolver from him. It is made of silver and other materials, and its bullets covered with lightning bolts will make it a lethal weapon for vampires, he said with a smile, while Gasper had a shiver. He calmed down. Gasper, I won't shoot you. Sona. I don't want to be the bad guy. But you can't wear that, he said, looking at Issei, who was getting sad. We will go through a kind of airport, and if the vampires see you with all that, they will think that you are some kind of terrorist who will try to massacre them, he said, so that issei would be discouraged. Azazel? That's right, boy. Sorry, said while issei was just discouraged, using Rosways's breasts as pillows to vent girls. Please check your luggage so that you don't carry anything strange or something that could start a war. As for the others, I will ask them to stay here. The Gremry group and arena will be enough. When a dragon leaves its nest, someone could enter to look for its treasure. So the Citri along with Joker and Dog should stay at home and in alert, I say. We have 2 of the Dragon Kings at home and also a very good exorcist, along with 2 of the best warriors in the entire supernatural world here. So whoever enters would have to be presumed dead, don't you think? He said, looking at the fallen man who only laughed, Briselda. I understand, Dulio. I'm sorry to ask you this even though you're on vacation, but we need to defend this place. He said, looking at the blonde, Dulio? No problem, it will be an honor to protect the house of the future king of the archangels, he said with a smile. Sona? Would Azazel allow my new servants to accompany you? He said, looking at the fallen one while Binia, Kiryu, Katus and Rugal. Azazel? Sounds good to me. His powers could be useful, he said, looking at those mentioned. I'm Skip. The boys prepared for their adventure, while one issei had a big smile again, as he just had to create a kind of pocket dimension in the shadows of him, according to Yui and Lin, and so he could carry his items to hunt vampires. Some time later they got ready with some fresh outfits for the weather that according to the fallen one awaits them. Ravel, Office, Leif and Kuroka said goodbye, saying that they would take good care of the place, but issei did not trust them and made some rules before leaving. Issei. Well said while looking at each of those who will stay at home. Sona, you are the most responsible, and I am sure that you can control the place. So I will leave you in charge, he said, so that the girl with glasses nodded and blushed. First rules, listen to Sona. Second rule, she said, looking at Office, Briselda and Red. I don't want any disaster here, and if they do, I hope they at least repair the damage. Third rule, at no bucking moment do I want to see that when I return, instead of finding my house, I only see a crater. Understood, she said, looking specifically at the dragons and the exorcist. None. All? Hi, Sona. Take care of yourself, she said to hug and kiss Issei with love. Issei. Don't worry, I'll come back to be with you, she said to return the kiss. Ravel? Issei-kun, I have something for you. I said to take some phoenix tears from his pocket. Sama gave them to me for you. He sent them when he found out that they were going to Romania, he said, giving him the tears. Issei. How strange that he gives me things like he is, she said, crying. And why is this? Bravo. Ani, Sama said, if that irresponsible fool dies again and makes my little sister cry, I would revive him and kill him myself, she said, imitating her voice. I say. I understand. Well, tell my little brother-in-law that thank you for the gift and for worrying about me, she said happily to kiss the phoenix before leaving the office. Issei, the evil dragons are strong and persistent, so be careful, I said, looking at the albino. Issei. Okay, I'll have it, she said, giving the dragon a small kiss on the forehead, which made her blush and look away from her. Red? Come back soon, boy. Pizarra. Goodbye, Issei, we will miss you, they said while she was hugged by Red, as if he were her husband. Issei. The type of relationship you have already has me nervous, she said, looking at both of them, and then sighed. I'm Skip. Scene change. Romania. You can see an Azazel waiting with a little blonde vampire for our protagonist and his friends to appear. Azazel? I understand that there are guards there, but what about those brats who are outside? She said, thinking that there were several young people in some parts of the surrounding area where they were. It can't be helped. It's a very high-ranking nobility clan on the side of our faction. When they found out about this, they insisted on being part of this alongside their partner, or rather, their partner insisted on it. This favored the vampire lowly reproached to be from a clan as important as her to fall before the pleas of an ex-human makes me think that the purity of the blood is lost with the passage of time. Besides, knowing the successor of the demon king and god of the Bible is something very exciting for some, he said. Simply they are here, whispered. The circle will begin to shine, allowing the boys to see. Azazel? It's good that they arrived, but an issei, she said without being able to see the boy. Essie's companions only moved aside so they could see an Essie in a vampire hunting clothes next to a hat while he had a smile. Issei. Here I am, she said with a smile. Azazel? And it can't be, he said looking at Issei. Well, the vampire lowly only trembled in fear. Elmenhord. El is, he said she while trembling, Issei. So this is the land of the undead, she said looking around her. I imagined it to be gloomier, and with more monsters, she said with a smile. Womanhold. Liar, they brought a vampire hunter to kill us, she said terrified. Azazel? Essie, why the hell are you wearing those clothes, she said looking at Essie. Essie? Well, since I came to hunt vampires, I'm supposed to dress for the occasion, she said with a smile. Olmenhild only called her guards, but they were still somewhat intimidated when they saw Essie's clothes and smile. Azazel? Please calm down, it's just a misunderstanding, she said, trying to calm the situation. This is Issei Hayadu, he came to help us, she said, so that Issei would only greet with a friendly smile. Issei. A pleasure. So who is the one who will hire me to exterminate some evil vampires? Lemonhild only gathered her courage and stood in front of Issei. Lemonhild. It's me, it's a pleasure, descendant of the god of the Bible, and king of demons, she said, bowing a little. Olmenhild, I was the one who asked for her help, she said something nervous. Issei, it's a pleasure to meet you, Miss Olmenhild, she said to lean down and kiss her wrist, which made the girl blush. Sarah? Oni-chan, I think you're getting too into the role, she said jealous. Became? Yes, she said just as jealous. Change of scene. Outside a medieval tower with a snowy field you can see some guards guarding the entrance, while two silhouettes out on a rock. Are you sure that that person that everyone in the yakai world is talking about will come? Will he? I know him very well. He is very stubborn, he said looking at the landscape. Let's see if he became as strong as the rumors say, he said, while seeing a hat next to a head of albino hair appearing in the distance. Here it is. With Issei, and Issei can be seen smoking a cigar while he walked alongside the vampire lowly. Bikino. I didn't know that Ice-Con smoked, she said looking at Issei. Issei? Don't worry, it's fake, he said showing that he wasn't even turned on since he was rubber. I'm just in character, she said with a smile. At that moment, a voice could be heard as Issei was tackled. I see, he shouted a voice while he tackled him. Everyone was surprised by that, but at that moment, they saw a pink-haired girl with a crucifix hanging as if it were a necklace. I see you and I miss you a lot, she said hugging Issei tightly. Omen held. Hey Mocha-chan, what are you doing, she said looking at the pink-haired girl. At that moment a brown boy appears with a smile. It's been a long time, right, Issei? She said looking at Issei. Seeing them, Issei only let out some tears and hugged them both tightly. Issei? I never thought I would see them again, she said hugging them while they hugged back. Issei's companions were only curious about the scene that was playing out in front of them. Issei. Wow, a lot has really happened, he said looking at both of them. Mocha-chan became a very beautiful girl and you became an idiot with more muscles than Sukun remembered, he said, making them both laugh. Mocha? Well, me and Nyasin have been training a lot, and we've been through a lot just like you, as we've heard, right? She said looking at her brother Sukun. Well, just like you, idiot, and what clothes are you wearing? It's obvious that the vampire hunting movies went to your head, she said with some mockery. Issei? Hey, I have to get into character if I want to work well, he said to her, so they both laughed. Asia? Issei-san? Who are they? She said curiously. Issei? Sorry girls. Well, this is Tsukun Akashiya and Mocha Akashiya, a couple of vampires and my best childhood friends, she said with a smile. Everyone? What? Lemonhild. Mocha-chan, is he telling the truth? She said looking at the pink-haired girl. Mocha? Yes, Ice-kun is a good friend of mine along with Nai's, and she said hugging Issei, Suchun. I was hoping to see you here after all. My parents gave permission for Azazel-san to place the teleportation circle in his territory, she said with a smile. Issei? How are Mr. and Mrs. Dracula? She said she with some mockery. Loka? Moo, oh, don't call my parents I see you, and she said she with a cute pout. Issei? He's sorry. Sukun? They are fine, but if they hear the nickname you gave them again, They will surely drain every last drop of blood from you, she said, thinking about how her parents would feel again when they heard Issei's nickname. Irina? Issei-kun, are they your childhood friends? She said curiously. Issei? Yes, when I went to school after Rias and Sona turned demons to my brothers, they were the only ones who talked to me and with whom I got along well, but after a few months they had to return to Romania. He said something nostalgic. I really miss them, he said, looking at both. Mocha? Us too, and although it may not seem like it, my parents also miss you a lot, she said, hugging Issei again. Issei? I would like to see them again, she said with a smile. At that moment Yui and Lin took their human forms and separated Mocha from Issei. Yui? Yes, very cute and all, but stay away from our blood-sucking master, she said separately to the pink-haired issei. Lin? Yes, you bother a little, she said with jealousy. At that moment Matcha just smiled to kneel in front of both girls. Mocha? You seem very beautiful, why don't you marry my little brother? She said as she smiled and knelt down as if she was going to ask them to marry him. Sukiyun? Mocha stopped that, she said, to grab her sister by the collar of her shirt and take her away from both girls. Forgive her, she is always like that, said somewhat embarrassed. Mocha? I'm just helping Uni-san. Oka-san and Odo-san are already a little worried since you're not interested in any girl and they think you're gay, she said, looking at her brother. Sukun? I'm not gay, damn it, I'm just not interested in getting a girlfriend right now, she said, looking at her sister. Mocha? Naya-san, I don't judge, and Odo-san and Oka-san are already ready for you to come out of the closet, so do it whenever you like, she said, putting her hand on the boy's shoulder. Issei. Wow, I didn't know you had those tastes, she said mockingly while she laughed. Sukun, shut up. The three of them just laughed, while the others just felt somewhat left out of the conversation. Suchiun? Well, I never imagined that you were the descendant of the god of the Bible, and the king of demons, she said, looking at Issei. You are full of surprises. Issei, what can I tell you? Apparently the world loves me or thinks I'm important, she said with a smile. Sukuin? When the stories that an albino who calls himself the Shinigami kicked the butt of a certain cow and seduced the queen of the yokais with her daughter, I knew it was you, he said with a smile, but I took it for granted, surprised that they called you the king of the harem, he said while laughing. Bissei. People gave me the nickname and the harem king thing, well, let's just say I can't deny it, he said somewhat embarrassed. Mocha? I see you in womanizer Baka, she said, something jealous. Lomenhold. Sorry for interrupting the reunion, but we have to do work, remember? She said, she looking at the three young people. They only looked at the vampire lowly for a few seconds to ignore her and continue her conversation. I say. And tell me how it went. She said with a smile. Lomenhold. Don't ignore me, Issei. And tell me, how hard have you made yourself? She said with a smile. Suchuin. Oh, you don't want to have asked that, she said with a smile. Time skip. You could see a chestnut tree and an albino in the middle of a field. Both were on a battlefield about to fight. I say, as I remember, you told me that you could even regenerate limbs with your great regeneration that rivals the phoenix. Although I didn't really know or care much about what you told me when we were children, she said with a smile. Suchuin? It's obvious that you don't change. But yes, my powers and regeneration can rival those of the phoenix, she said with a smile. Issei just snapped his fingers to change her outfit back to her usual trench coat. Issei? Well, let's see what you can do, she said with a smile. They both just smiled so that in a burst of speed, they both collided forearms, while a large shock wave made the place shake. Heart 49 more vampires. In the land of vampires, you can see an albino fight with a chestnut. While everyone watched the impressive battle between both young men, it was a hand-to-hand fight with great skill that surprised most of those present. Both kicked and dodged the attacks to counter-attack them with force. Issei only had a smile on his face, while Tsukyun had the same smile. Loka? It seems like they're having fun, she said, happy to see them both with a smile. Aikino? Mocha-chan, when did you meet Ice-kun? I asked curiously. Mocha? Gigi. Well, we were friends at school, we were exchange students, we went to Japan in winter, since at that time of year the sun rarely rises and our parents had some problems to solve. I still remember how I met Ice-kun, he said happily. Flash black. The pink-haired girl can be seen being picked on by some boys in a park. Child 1? But she looks at that hair. You sure are a weirdo? He said with mockery. Child 2, and you're very pale and stupid. I'm sure your parents and siblings are retarded. The children only made fun of her while she was alone. She could lower her head while she shed some tears. But at that moment she heard someone hit one of the children. And at that moment she saw Essie hit the one who seemed to be the leader of the bullies. Essie, leave us alone, they are just bullies, she said, looking angrily at the boys. Child 1. Sniff, sniff, she let out some tears when she felt the pain on her cheek. Why, you'll see, you will pay us hideout, he said to go with her friends. Issei only calmed down a little and looked at the pink-haired girl watching him while he was still on the ground. Issei? Are you okay? He said, looking at the girl. Mocha? Why, yes, said still in shock. Who are you? Issei? It's a pleasure, I'm Issei. Hide you, she said with a small smile. And are you? Mocha? I'm Masha Akashiya. Issei. Well, it's a pleasure, Mocha-chan, he said happily. After that, Mocha's brother arrived and thanked Issei for saving his little sister. They both went home, and the next day they spent time with Issei. The three boys became Issei's best friends until it was time for them to return to Romania. Then flash black, Mocha. Since then we have both missed Ice-kun a lot, of course. We also told him that we were vampires, and he was very excited, although he had already told us that he had already had contact with the supernatural. I understand why Issei appreciates them so much, he said, looking at how Issei was still fighting with Tsukin with a smile. Issei at one point delivered a flurry of blows to the brunette's stomach, along with a kick to the jaw that lifted him off the ground. Essie at that moment covered his fire fist to give him a powerful blow in the stomach, sending him flying a few meters back. The brunette, in some pain, only got up to see how his wounds regenerated quickly. Tsukin, you really are strong. No one has hurt me so much before, he said, wiping a small trickle of blood that came out of his nose. Essie? Well, there is always a first time for everything, he said with a smile. But you know something? As your friend, my duty is, he said, so that he will pull out a stake from his shadow vampire shirt, he said with a smile. Guard? Ullman hold Sama back, he said, upset when he saw Issei. He would take out the stake. Azazel? Issei, what the hell are you doing? Put that away before you cause a political disagreement, girls. I told you not to bring any of that stuff, he said, looking at the girls. Rose was? We couldn't do anything, Yui. And Lin taught Issei-kun to make a kind of pocket dimension that only he can open and store things, he said. Looking at Issei with a bead of sweat on the back of his neck, Issei just threw the stake, which the brunette easily avoided. But I didn't expect that Issei with Yui would quickly cut off his right arm, making him moan in pain. Tsukyun? Shit, why the hell does it hurt so much? He said, looking at his wound that was not regenerating. Issei. That's because the blade Yui and Lin are bathed in holy water, lethal to demons and vampires alike, he said, pointing his sword at Issei. So tell me, do you want to dance? He said with a sadistic smile. Mocha? How strange, I had never seen that smile on Ice-kun before, he said, looking at how Issei was trying to decapitate his brother. The girl continued watching, but at that moment a voice echoed in her head. He is not only an angel and a demon, he is also a dragon. I recognize him by his scent, said the voice. Mocha, girls, Ice-kun is a dragon. Asia? If he is, why do you ask? Mocha? It's better that I stop this now, he said, to take off the crucifix that he has as a necklace. Issei was still trying to kill his best friend. Well, he was just trying not to die at the hands of his best friend. But at that moment Issei dodged a kick from an albino girl. Issei only stepped back to see how in front of him was a macho with white hair. Issei. Hello Mocha Black, he said, looking at the albino. Mocha, I thought you wouldn't show up. Mocha? Well, things have changed. And you know well that vampires don't regenerate instantly from wounds like that, he said, pointing to Tsukum's missing arm. Issei. Sorry, I got carried away, he said with a nervous smile. Issei only used his white flame to return his arm to his friend, which he was grateful to see the girl again. Mocha, it seems that you have become very strong, Baka, she said, looking at Issei. Issei? Well, a lot of things happened, he said, scratching the back of his neck. The albino only licked her lips to make Issei grab him by her shirt and kiss him in front of everyone, causing everyone to be shocked. Mocha? Your lips now taste better than before. I wonder if your blood will taste the same? He said, looking flirtatiously at Issei. For the first time, Issei got nervous, which surprised the girls in Azazel. Issei. Maybe. At that moment Yui and Lin took their human forms to separate Issei from the vampire. Yui. Stay away from the bloodsucker, she said, jealous. Lin. Master will not be one of your servants. Mocha, how funny, he will be my future husband, and when he bites that neck again, I will vampirisate him so that he can be a cute vampire like me, she said with some arrogance, looking at the girls. The entire issei harem? Over our dead body? Mocha? Well, that can be fixed, she said, so that his nails would grow and sharpen like daggers. I'll just have to kill each one of you. The girls just got ready to fight, but at that moment Sukhun placed the crucifix on the girl's neck so that Match's hair returned to normal. Mocha? Sorry girls, I don't control my counterpart when she takes control, she said, embarrassed and blushing. Aikino? Counterpart? Sukyun? Well, let's say that Mocha has a lot of power, but that power manifests itself in a wild and uncontrolled way that causes Mocha to acquire a second personality, Issei, and I named her Mocha Black. It's like a delinquent and wild version of Mocha, he said simply. Yuri? Yes, but why did Ice-kun get nervous when she approached him? She said that Issei had not been like that with a girl before. Sukun? They don't want to know about Issei's previous trauma, she said, looking at her friend who was blushing a little. All traumas? Mocha? Don't tell that, it is shameful, she said, blushing. Sukun. Well, let's say Mocha Black did a lot of things to Issei when he was a child. Flash black. You can see a child Issei in Mocha's room. Everything was normal, but at that moment a Mocha was kissing and touching Issei's body while he was just moaning from the vampires touching Issei. Mocha don't he do that, he said, blushing while he was alone. He continued licking her neck. It makes me feel weird. Mocha? Come on, I know you like it, don't you want me to do it with you here and now? He said, looking at Issei that he was just in bed afraid of what her friend could do to him. Issei. And no, I don't want that, please stop, he said, begging him to stop. The girl just smiled, but before she could grape him through the door, Atsukin entered with the macho crucifix to reseal that personality. Then flash black, Sokun. After that, Issei was traumatized. I couldn't catch Mocha Black without getting nervous or stuttering. Mocha? I am really sorry, I didn't mean for my alter ego to do something like that, she said, apologizing. I say. It's okay, Mocha-chan. I know that your other you has a different way of acting and thinking. The boys continued talking, but at that moment a small voice took the boys out of their world. Lemon halt. Cough cough. Sorry for the interruption, but we have things to do, remember? She said, looking at the boys. Susiyun? Of course, Bratty said with some mockery. Loman hiled. Don't call me that, you will regret your words, she said, to start hitting Susiyun's breasts in a tender way. I say. I think what you're trying to do is this, he said, giving the brunette a hard blow to the stomach. Susiyun, son of, he couldn't finish speaking since Elmenhild kicked the boy in the face, sending him to the ground. I hope you've learned your insolent lesson, she said, looking at Etsukin on the ground while he was holding his stomach and had a shoe mark on his face. Issei just laughed, but the boy quickly got up to kick Issei in the back, which made him fall on top of the vampire loli. A loud bang resonated around them as they both fell silent, but everyone was shocked to see how Issei kissed the vampire loli on the ground. Sukyun? What are you doing, Issei? Issei only quickly separated while both of them had a small blush. Issei? Sorry, it wasn't my. Issei stopped talking when he saw that Elmenhild was about to cry as if she were a little girl. Azazel? Issei, I know you're the harem king and everything, but please control yourself, Issei. It wasn't my fault. Sorry, I said, trying to calm the girl. I'll give you sweets, but please don't cry, she said, trying to stop the loli from crying while behind Issei. Her girls were with an aura of death. Ikino. Era, Ice-kun is a womanizer. It seems we will have to punish him, he said with a look and smile that conveyed pain. Paniko? Issei-kun is a womanizing Lilikan, she said, upset. Issei. I already told you it wasn't my fault, guard. Omenhild-sama. no one saw this, just let me take care of it. The guard was stopped by the lowly while she stood up and wiped her tears. Ullman howled. And no, nothing's wrong, it was just an accident, she said, wiping her tears and trying to act mature. There's no point arguing now, just take them to the transport, she said, something blushing and avoiding seeing Issei. Azazel, thank you very much for your understanding. I will make sure that my womanizing friend does not cause problems, he said, looking at Issei, who was only tied by his hands and feet, while he had a blindfold on his eyes and mouth that said pervert and lolican while they put him into a van. Sukyun? Well, Ullman howled. No, they won't leave Mocha-san. Can I ask you a favor? She said, looking at the pink-haired girl. Mocha? Of course. I'm Skip. After a while the boys just left, while in the distance the little vampire only watched them walk away. Guard. Yumenhold-sama, with all due respect, no one else saw what happened. We can send the ninja vampires to kill them in the confusion of the war, she said, whispering the last thing in her master's ear. Lemon howled. No. I'll deal with that later. For now, the Teets clan conflict is the priority. She said she would be her. But every time she remembered the kiss, she blushed. Baka. In another side, we see how a blue-haired dragon saw her many treasures, while her two companions guarded what looked like the entrance to a very large burrow. Hella, wow, I didn't know you had so many treasures and so old, she said, looking at a crystal skull and other things that looked like a map to the Fountain of Youth. Are you sure one of these will work, Tiamat? Tiamat? If you just trust, the girl just stopped and felt a sudden jealousy run through her body. Ella? What's wrong? Tiamat? I suddenly feel like killing vampires, she said with some jealousy. Change of scene? A red deed can be seen next to Azara, you and Kiba, but at that moment both girls felt sudden jealousy. You? What's wrong, but you? Rias? I feel like hitting Issei for some reason, she said, something annoyed. Izara? Yes, I'm sorry too, he must be a womanizer again. With Issei, you can see an Issei still tied up while the girls just looked at him with some annoyance. Issei only used his flames to burn the ropes and free himself. But when he removed the blindfold that covered his eyes, he only saw how the girls looked at him with a terrifying aura. Issei only put the blindfold back on his eyes and pretended not to see anything. Hard 50 powerful enemies. The gagged Issei could be seen in a truck while Rosways was driving the truck with Azazel as co-pilot. But he was only trying to calm down since the fallen man could only hear the murmurs of the girls, trying to decide what punishment to give Issei for kissing Issei. A girl. Issei was just trying to free himself, but he couldn't since apparently the girls tied him with something much stronger. Akino. Era, no matter how much you tried to free yourself, we bind you with chains made of Nordic metal. They are very resistant and enchanted, so even with your flames, it will take you a while to break them, he said, looking at Issei, who just stopped fighting. Broswees? Yes, but they are not cheap. Aden-sama gave them to me for certain things, she said, somewhat blushing. Yuri? And those are they? Broswees? Well. Sarah. We were going to use it for when we want the Grey Pony-chan, although we had an unforeseen event, and we will have to use them this way, she said, looking at her brother, Akino. Era, well, we will soon arrive with Buchu, and I am sure that she will not like what we tell her. Besides, she said with a malicious smile, we will not have to waste it. We can use these chains for Ice-kun's punishment, she said, while licking his lips. Leave him like this and grape him without him being able to resist. Let him be our cute hex slave who will fulfill each and every one of our darkest fantasies, he said. So that Issei will only start trying to free himself again, this time with more force. Though all the girls, it only seemed like a good punishment, but one Azazel could only feel a little sorry for his friend and tried to have faith that Issei would come out alive, that it will happen. After driving for a while, they arrived at a cable car that was the connection between both territories. Azazel spoke with the managers to give them a cabin, while the girls went down to a still gagged Issei. Issei was put down by the girls, but each one was still a little upset, so they came up with something evil. Bueno, letting Issei fall in the snow. Aura, I'm sorry, Ice-kun. Zenobia at that moment kicked Issei a little to make him roll, filling his entire body with snow. Zenobia. UPS, forgive Issei, my mistake, she said, looking at the boy on the floor. Irina. Zenobia, don't do that better even this, she said, putting snow inside issei's shirt, making him start to shiver a little from the cold. Yui. Era, I think master is hot, she said, looking at Issei. Lin? How about we help him a little? Both girls took off his raincoat, leaving him only in his pants, making the boy even colder. Guard 1. Sir, I don't think those are girls, he said, looking at the girls bothering Issei. Guard 2. We'll classify them differently, he said, to change their races to ruthless monsters. Azazel? I'm sorry, Issei, if I get involved they will do the same to me. It hurts me to see you like this, he said, looking at Issei with some pity. After they got on the cable car, the girls continued to bother Issei while they saw the castle that was in the middle of everything, understanding that it was the castle or base of the Vampire King. Issei only trembled, and little by little black flames came out of his body, trying to warm it up as a kind of defense mechanism. Issei finally managed to free himself, but at that moment he was hit by Kaneko on the head, sending him to the ground again. Kaneko, that's what makes you unfaithful, she said, upset. Aikano? Era, Ice-kun, you're still grounded, you better stay there. The girls just laughed, but Issei felt missing. The boy was cold, and the chains hurt their wrists a lot since every time he tried to free them, they tightened, causing marks to be left on his wrists. Issei's body little by little began to react. Shadows began to appear all over the place, alerting the boys, but Cerberus only came out of the shadows to snuggle around Issei's body, giving him warmth. Yuri? What is Cerberus doing here? Did Issei summon him? No, he came out on his own, he said, seeing how the dog was only protecting Issei. The kennel? Era, and for what reason? Lin? I think the master's body is reacting on its own. Cerberus came out to defend him, since he thinks we are hurting him, he said, looking at Cerberus, not allowing anyone to get close to Issei. The girls only watched as the three-headed dog bit the chains that held Issei, breaking them. At that moment Issei just snapped his fingers so that his raincoat appeared again. The boy just hugged Cerberus, warming up again. Master, is it okay? Issei Sola looked at the girls with a dead look that made them paralyzed. Issei seemed to have no sign of even having a light of life, which upset the boys. Lin, Master, we're sorry, please forgive us. Issei didn't say anything and continued hugging the three-headed dog. The dog just looked at the girls with some annoyance. Azazel. Girls were very cruel to him, and they knew perfectly well that it was just an accident. They didn't have to be so hard on him, he said, petting Issei's back. The girls only felt bad for what they did to Issei. After that reflection of their actions by the girls, the boys arrived at the other side, where some vampires were waiting for them to check their luggage and other things for safety. Ard. Well, now you can come in, he said, petting the cute little three-headed dog a little. Issei just smiled a little to pick him up in his arms, and they continued walking with him. After that, a vampire who seemed to be the leader was waiting for the boys. LV Vampire Leader, it's a pleasure to see the ex-governor of Grigori and the Gremory entourage, he said, looking at the boys. We also know that he comes with a descendant of the god and the demon king, he said, looking at Issei, who only seems somewhat annoyed. It seems annoying, sir, he said, looking at Issei. Azazel? We had some mishaps. It's nothing important. He'll get over it, or so he hoped, he said, seeing how Issei acted somewhat away from the girls. LVE, well, it will be a pleasure to show you the city a little, he said, smiling, he said, looking at his bodyguard. He wanted escorts to open the streets. I don't want them to interfere with his way to the mansion. Guards? Hi. While the boys were being escorted, the fallen man sighed with relief because the commission did not allow them to see that the members were missing, but the tranquility of the place made them uneasy, as they believed it was a war zone at first. Bracius? A silent coup? Azazel? Yes, and the most problematic thing is that they have been successful, he said seriously. The boys only arrived at the mansion, but before entering they said a few words. Azazel? Well, remember to control yourself and above all your essay, he said, looking at the boy who only had the same lost look. I don't want you to take out any wooden stakes. You could cause problems between factions, understand? The boy just nodded while Cerberus just barked a little. Azazel? Are you still upset because the girls basically tortured you? A little. Azazel? Come on, don't be like that. I know it was cruel on their part, but they say that people do crazy things for love. Get over it. You'll see your sister and Ria's with a happy face, he said, but issei alone remained the same. As per issei-senpai? I will protect him if the girls want to bother him again, he said, looking at Issei, who just caressed his head a little. Issei? Okay. The boys only entered, and as they passed through the corridors they were taken to the main hall where there was a main throne. At that moment the boys heard a voice known to everyone. Rias? Guys, everyone? But you? The boys just hugged her president, while behind her came a happy Izara. Izara? Hello guys, Asia? Izara-san, he said happily, hugging the girl. Everyone just greeted and hugged both girls except Issei, since he looked a little upset, and he was just trying to get away from them. Rias? So you realized how much of the coup d'etat? He said, looking at Azazel. Azazel? That's right, I brought the boys thinking they would be helpful. I hope you don't mind. Rias? Of course not. In fact, I was thinking the same thing, but I was locked up in this castle. I can't see the king despite being invited, and while I was waiting, one of them asked me to accompany him to see the guests, she said, hugging to Aquino. By the way, where is Ice? Aquino. Well, he, Azazel? Well, your Prince Charming may have been traumatized by the other girls just because of an unfortunate accident, he said, looking at Issei, who was in a corner, still hugging an upset Cerberus. Poor boy, he said with some sadness when he remembered what the girls did to them. Rias, Ice, give your pretty Rias a big hug. I want to show you a couple of rooms to decorate ours, she said, she winking while she had a goofy smile. Before the girl could get to where Issei is, he just disappeared in her shadow to appear on the other side. Azazel? Sei is upset because he accidentally kissed a girl, and the girl's scene that basically tortured him. He said to make Rias and Izara get a little upset. Rias? Well, but it was just that, right? Azazel? Yes, just that. Izara? Poor Oni-chan was mistreated by some bad girl, she said, hugging Issei. But don't worry, one-chan will help you forget those bad times. Issei just stuck his head between the brunette's breasts while he was alone caressing him. Rias? Hey, I was going to do that. Both girls only caressed and pampered Issei, while the other girls only felt jealous. After that the boys were surrounded by guards with armor and swords, saying that they were meeting the new governor, taking them to a large room with a red tapestry and the symbol of the house. At the back of the place you could see a blonde woman sitting on the throne in a noble suit, next to her some vampires of the same hair tone. As they watched the guests, although they noticed that the woman's gaze seemed empty, like if his eyes had lost their light, something that Issei knew perfectly well. Nice to meet you, my name is Valerie Peeps, he said, introducing himself with a forced and empty smile that gave a little sadness to those present, but left a serious albino. Valerie, it has been decided that I will be the current head of the Peeps faction, so as the queen, it is a pleasure to meet you. The girl only gave a forced smile, but in a moment she saw Gasper, which made her look change even more. Valerie? Gasper, she said, looking at Gasper, you've grown up a lot. Jasper? Valerie, I wanted to see you, said the boy, after having gathered courage and forced a friendly smile. They both started a chat about how happy they were to see each other again, and how much they had both grown. But everyone was surprised to see how the girl looked in another direction and began to say incoherently, as if she were talking to someone else, Valerie, do not look directly or you will be attracted by the presence of the Holy Grail, especially you who are part of the church, she said, looking at Asia, Zenobia and Irina. I say, Holy Grail, she said to smile. The boy just took out a small piece of chalk to start drawing a magic circle. Azazel? Issei, what are you doing? Issei? Well, obviously I'm preparing for the Holy Grail War. I have to summon my servant. Hopefully I'll get an X-rank servant, she said with a smile. Azazel? Don't say stupid things. It's not that Holy Grail War, he said to see how Issei got a little depressed. Valerie, it is rude to talk about those things. Now that you are a queen you should speak more appropriately, she said, so that the blonde would apologize and talk about her new regime without discrimination against the vampires. Azazel, I see that you trained her well, and you have a bad habit of showing it. What do you intend to do? Use it. Judging by your words, I can deduce that you are the mastermind, he said seriously. Boo. If you believe so, allow me to introduce myself. I am the fifth successor to the throne of the Pepys family, Marius Pepys. I am the new temporary mayor, as well as the main advisor of the sacred gear, etc., 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 and, of course, brother of the new Queen Valerie Teets. It's a pleasure, he said, smiling evilly while leaning somewhat mockingly. The fallen and the vampire looked at each other seriously, and the vampire told about how he took the opportunity to use the Holy Grail against his own faction, emphasizing that person, while Zenobia and Irina seemed upset at the vampire's cruelty towards their sister. Well, the conversation escalates. Although the albino feels uncomfortable about something and couldn't stop looking at a certain part of the room, they say. Whispering, I can feel it. Zenobia. You already made me angry, he said, pulling out the sword from him. It's time to kill him. Rias. Zenobia, stop. After all, he is the mayor of the place. That would have consequences for us, he said, stopping the girl. Azazel? Boy. He said to look at his say that he only saw that specific direction to later understand his situation. Marius? Wow, I'm terrified, he said mockingly, so let me introduce you to my bodyguard, he said to snap his fingers, making a figure appear which made everyone except issei shiver when they saw who it was. The figure came out from behind a pillar in the room to show a man with blonde and black hair. One eye was gold, and the other was black, and his gaze was something serious. They say? Who is he? Greg. He is the Crescent Moon Dragon Crumcruich, one of the strongest evil dragons. Azazel? Mumbling, guys, whatever you do, don't start a fight. Most of the people and guards are being controlled by that idiot. It's better to keep the casualties to a minimum. Marius, let's finish this for today. I have rooms prepared, stay for a while. Oh, by the way, the current head of the Vladi is also present in the basement. You can go see him if you want, he said with some mockery. After that, the boys had no choice but to surrender and pay attention since they did not want to harm the guards being controlled by the idiotic evil vampire. The Gremry group was escorted by the evil dragon, who did not take his eyes off them. Well, as the group walked, they talked about the unpleasant vampire and how he betrayed the ideals of vampires, which always stood for the good of the race. The fallen one also began to talk about the Holy Grail and its power to revive the dead, but the consequences were great when using it. While they were walking, Issei stopped when he saw how Yu and Kiba were in a cell playing cards with a long-haired man, Gray, known as Azazel. Issei. Wow, it looks like they got caught, he said with some mockery, looking at both swordsmen. You? And you too? Issei. Yes, but it was only so as not to hurt the people who are controlled. Oh, what a coincidence, he said, looking at the boy. Issei. Sorry, do I know you? Azazel. So it was you after all, he said, looking at the man. Riaz? Who is he? Azazel? You should already know, right, Rizavin? He said, looking at the man who had a smile. Riaz? Why, you must be kidding me, he said with a trembling voice. Tiba? Yes, it's but you, EW. Apparently he was also caught, but according to him he doesn't kill us since he said that wouldn't be fun, but that's a lie. Tiba? You know that if you try to do something we will both easily break you in half, and even more so being in this cramped space, he said simply. Azazel? Well, and tell me why the great Rizav enlivened Lucifer is in a cell? I say? Lucifer? So he? Azazel? Yes, he is the son of the original Lucifer and Lilith. But I think you already knew that, boy. It is rather because of his connection with Azar's rival, Issei. This stupid guy is Valerie's grandfather, he said with some mockery. Rizavan? So you are the descendant of God and the first demon king, he said, looking at Issei. You know, I do not hold a grudge against the new generations for usurping my title. But this time I have to make an exception since I am going to be the king of the whole world, he said seriously. But if you join me, I will forget everything that happened, he said simply. Issei just snapped his fingers so that some swords of light were pointed at the man's neck. Rosavan. What if you forget what I told you? He said nervously. Issei just smiled, but at that moment a small figure was pulling his suit. Issei. But what? Office, he said, looking at a small copy of Office. Rizavan. She is the mascot of our organization, we call her Lilith-chan, please get along with her, he said, looking at the copy of the dragon loli. Azazel. Just as I thought, the power that Cao stole from office using Samuel, he said, looking at the little loli. Issei just smiled a little to take out a chocolate and give it to the little girl, which she gladly accepted and quickly ate the chocolate, and then looked at Issei, pleading as if he were a dog. Issei? What? Do you want more? He said, showing another chocolate. She just nodded so Issei would take out a few more sweets and give them to the dragon. Honiko. Issei, come, those are my sweets. Issei just ignored the girl to continue watching how she is. She ate the candy, and she sat on Issei's lap. Eri? How long will you be upset? Issei? Until each of you kneels before me and apologizes, or maybe when they take off their shirts and roll in the Bucking Mountain snow, he said, still angry with the girls. Of course it shows who's boss. You seem more fun than I thought, and it also seems that little Lilith-chan takes a liking to you, he said, looking at the little girl eating sweets on Issei's lap. Issei. She looks like just a little girl, he said, stroking the lowly dragon's head. Rizavan. Don't be fooled, she may look like a girl, but she is very powerful. She is my personal bodyguard, although it is difficult for her to contain herself. By the way, I must go discuss certain things with Marius-kun. Don't make a mess. We don't want them to cross out to the demons of being rude. By the way, Azazel, he said, looking at the fallen man, and I heard that you do a great job taking care of my granddaughter. I'll entrust her to you, he said, giving the fallen man a bow, obviously mocking him. Azazel? She will go for you and kill you, you bastard, and if she doesn't do it, she will essay. Essay? I don't know, I already like him, he said, looking at the gray-haired man with a smile. If he understands me. I like you too, boy. I wish you were on my side. I would make you my right hand, he said with a smile. Azazel? Issei, don't become friends with your future enemies of death, Issei. You are very uptight, Arizovan. Well, I retired, he said, to magically open the cell, and by the way, he is not the only creature that follows my orders, he said, looking at Azazel in a mocking way, which made him angry. Goodbye, boy, and remember, my deal still stands, said to leave and disappear into the distance, along with Lilith. Azazel? That bastard, where he is? Hey Azazel? Azazel? Laugh it, apparently it won't be as easy as we thought. If what he said is true, we'll probably have more problems than we thought, he said, somewhat irritated. Issei, he's a good guy, he said, remembering their good times together. Azazel? Issei, I'm going to hit you. Part 51. More questions than answers. After spending some time in the dungeon and playing for a while with the little Cerberus, the boys could be seen in a common room. The red tapestry of the walls and furniture reminded Issei of the Gryffindor common room. While Lice simply he still ignored the girls since he was still upset. They were chatting and discussing the situation with Azazel. Outside the castle you could see how the snow was beginning to fall more intensely. I say. I'm hungry, what time do they bring dinner? Azazel. Boy, I don't think you understand the situation, he said, looking at Azazel with an hour of sweat on the back of his neck. Azazel? Of course I know, we are in a castle full of bloodthirsty vampires being manipulated by an idiot. Plus there is also a second office around. But hey, we are still alive, and that should be an achievement for you, Azazel. How many times did you almost get killed this week? 10 or 20 maybe, he said with some mockery. Azazel, for your information there were only 12, and well, if you understand most of the situation, I say. Besides, if that old man with Peter Pan syndrome comes to harm us, I will simply kill him, he said while walking and lighting the place's fireplace to warm up a little more. Riaz and Azara snuggled into his chest with a cute smile. The two also wanted to do the same, but Issei created walls of shadow to prevent them from touching him. Master, you are very childish, she said, something already irritated. Issei. By what right do you say that I almost got hypothermia because of you? The only ones who can hug me are Rias and Azarashi, she said as she also hugged little Cerberus. Aikino. Bad Ice-Con, she said with a pout. Issei ignored the girls while he hugged Rias and Azara, causing the others to be jealous. Rias? I could stay like this forever, she said with a tender smile. Izara? Gugugugu, Oni-chan is warm and comfortable, she said with a smile. Issei happily took out marshmallows from his pocket dimension to scatter them in the fireplace, while Azazel just watched that, along with you and Kiba with curiosity. Azazel? How many things did you put in that dimension? Issei? Some are just next to various shadows which allows me to swallow them and put them in my pocket dimension. It's really useful, she said happily. Rias. Hey Ice, she said, drawing the albino's attention. Why do you have a scarf? She said, looking that the boy had a scarf covering his neck. I say. Well Edo. Akino. Fufufu. But I don't think she wants to see the love marks she left on ice. Kun fufufu. She said somewhat mockingly. Rias. What marks of love? She said, looking at how Issei had a slight blush. Ice. Take off that scarf now. Issei. Rias, calm down. It's nothing you guys haven't done, she said, trying to calm the girl down. Rias? Take it off, she said furiously. Issei only did as ordered, revealing the many hickeys that Akino left on him. Rias? I know what is this, she said. She looked angrily at the many hickeys. Issei? Okino and we had a long night when you weren't there yet, and well, the boy tried to explain, but he still didn't quite understand why Rias got like that. Rias? There are more than 10 hickeys there, Okino. And I also have to tell you that Issei's little friend has grown up. Chifufu. It was exciting to see how he grew more than normal, she said with a blush. Rias only let out angry crimson energy, while Issei continued eating his marshmallow happily. Rias, I ordered you as your wife to have sex with me now, she said angrily. Issei? What? Rias? I'm not going to lose the first place in your heart just because I was away from home for a few days, so, now I bet now, Issei. Rias, I'm eating marshmallows quietly with the boy, she said, while you, Kiba and Azaz are laid next to him that can't wait. Rias just took Issei by the arm to run him to a room to close it with all kinds of magical barriers, etc. During that day many moans were heard in that room for hours without rest, making some maids who passed by the place blush, and the Issei girls feeling envious. Time skip. Next day, you can see an Issei getting up somewhat married. The boy just went to the living room to see that everyone was having hot chocolate while watching TV. Azazel? Hello guys, it looks like you had a lot of fun yesterday, she said mockingly. Issei? Yes, Rias became more intense than usual. I don't complain much. I would have only asked her to put up a sound barrier. More than one maid stared at me with a blush on her face from embarrassment at even wanting to see me, he said, sitting down to have breakfast. You? Yes. We had to take Gasper to sleep with some earplugs. I'm sure he would be traumatized if he heard you, she said with a poker face. Kiba. Although I think but you did it on purpose not to put up a barrier so that Akino would get jealous, she said, looking angrily at Akino. Issei. By the way, what about Gasper and Rias? Azazel? They went with Azara and Kiba to talk to the new leader of the clan, she said simply. He must be having a lot of fun, she said, imagining Rias annoyed by the attitude of the evil vampire. Time skip. After Issei ate, the boys were guided by some maids until they reached the basement. This was something more luxurious and elegant than Issei expected, and in the darkness there was a man with blonde hair, who was almost invisible due to the darkness. Issei. So you are the former owner of this castle, she said, looking at the blonde hidden in the darkness. Ikano, it is a pleasure to meet you. We are Rias Gremry's servants. I am his queen. We thought we would greet you formally, sir, she said. She bowed a little before the older blonde. Issei's companions bowed a little, formally introducing themselves, but Issei only saw the man with some contempt and was displeased. Hey, the elder vampire, sit down, please, said the blonde man. Aren't you here to talk about Gasper? I have already spoken with Rias-sama, exchanging information regarding that, he said with displeasure when saying that. Issei. That is Pennywise also involved or something? He said with some mockery. A versus Penny what? Said the older blonde, confused. Azazel and Yua held back their laughter, while the girls didn't understand what Issei was referring to. Issei. You can see that they lack culture. When this is over, girls, we will see the 2 movies, she said with a smile. Azazel? Cough, cough, yes, okay, but leaving the jokes aside, let's get to the point, please, he said, becoming serious. The blond man at that moment began to tell Gasper's life, referring to him as it, which made issei angry. But he just restrained himself and let the man suggest his story, mentioning how Gasper's mother died in childbirth. Of the same. A.V. She died due to shock, said something sad? Azazel? Shock? A.V. What she gave birth to was something shrouded in darkness, a terrifying aura. It was not human, and of course it did not look like a vampire. It writhed in a creepy way, though the term monster was the most correct. It had some tentacles and viscosity, seeing it took her to death. Perhaps it was for the best. Otherwise, it says that seeing something beyond our understanding can lead to madness, he said, leaving those present in shock except issei, who only continued with his cold gaze. The nurses who treated him had to contain their fear of dying. We believe that Gasper cursed them unconsciously. After several hours, it took the shape of a normal baby, but we still stopped remembering that scene. Everyone was surprised by such a story, as if it had been taken from a horror movie. They had several questions, but most likely the vampire himself knew the same thing as them, and that was absolutely nothing. Bikino, and Gasper knows about this? A versus no. He said seriously until before his expulsion. We treated him like a damper, although we didn't know if it was the right decision. Issei. So Gasper's real father was a being with a lot of power, he said, looking at the man. What do you mean? Issei. Hey, you are really stupid, but you are somewhat right. People fear what they cannot understand. He said to turn around. That's all, sir. You can watch your lowly series again, he said to leave. A.V. What? The man remained silent when he saw how little Cerberus turned on the TV, showing a series that looked like about magical girls or something like that. Should he said to turn off the TV again, boy? Issei only turned to look at the man again. A.V. It is obvious that you are fond of the boy, but be careful, you have not even seen him in his original form, he said seriously. Issei. A great man once said those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are even worse than scum. If Gasper is a monster, then I don't care. He said to look at the man intently. I am too, and Gasper is my friend. So even if he is an octopus or a transvestite, I don't care. I will always support him because that's what friends do. He said to surprise the man by his motivating words. Goodbye, old man. Time skip. After that conversation, which made everyone's mind fill with questions about who Gasper really was, after a while the boys were invited to have tea with the leader Valerie. Riaz was waiting for them with a smile, but she had a look on her face, defiantly, about Okino. Okino? Era, hello, but you, it seems like he was already waiting for us. Riaz? Of course, besides, said, hugging Issei. I wanted to spend a nice time with, I said with a mocking smile. After all, we are much closer after what we did last night. Aikino only gets enraged by those words, causing small sparks to fly from his hands. Aikino? Era, but you, don't say those things, or I will have to punish you in front of everyone, she said, already angry. I see. Girls, please don't make a scene, she said, trying to calm them both down. Riaz? As if you could, we both know that I'm much stronger than you, he said with mockery. Aikino, don't underestimate me, but you, maybe you'll get a surprise. They both continued fighting, but Issei quickly separated them so that they would not suggest with their strange competition of who was Issei's favorite. Issei and the others sat down to drink tea, but each of the girls had to admit that they were not so comfortable that Issei was so close to a girl, since his fame as the harem king, along with his rare perverted luck, made him was a magnet for every woman, regardless of her race. Issei would just sit and drink some tea to calm down, but Valerie would start talking to herself due to the effects of the Holy Grail, and Issei would start to do the same. Valerie? Can you see it too? She said, looking at Issei. Issei? No, but you can hear it clearly. Valerie? Gigi? You're the first person to tell me that, she said with a gentle and kind smile, which made all the girls stare at Issei and Valerie. You're interesting. Issei? Maybe just a little, she said, scratching the back of her neck. They both talked a little, causing jealousy in the girls and a little jealousy in a certain little blonde vampire. Upon returning to her room, they began to discuss with Azazel about the effects of the Holy Grail on the girl and how they should hurry to help her. Part 52 Vampire Hunting. A few days have passed since the Gremry group arrived in Teep's territory. The Damper and Kaneko usually spend time with Valerie to drink tea. The Redid and her queen usually attend to other diplomatic matters, while Lazazel has not appeared anywhere these days. Although he usually sends a message to the boys to say that everything was under control. Although issei only thought that he was with some vampires enjoying life. On the other hand, issei has been much more serious than normal since he arrived at the castle. The encounter with the evil dragon has made him think a lot, especially since he had tea for the first time with the leader of the Teets clan. He was alone looking at the view from the balcony. She still remembers the scene while her companions were talking at the table with her. He kept looking at her bodyguard. Time became slow. The voices around them became incomprehensible echoes. It was just the two of them exchanging glances without expression. Issei, she said, a loud voice, breaking Issei out of her thoughts. Issei? Ah. What's happening? He said, looking at Valerie. Valerie? Issei-san, is something wrong? She was blank, she said, looking a little worried about the boy. Issei? And no, it's nothing. I was thinking about something, she said to pat the blonde's head and get up from the table. The boy just sat in front of the fireplace while still looking somewhat lost. Valerie was a little surprised, but at that moment Irina and Zinovy approached her. Irina? It's been like this lately, she said, looking at the boy who only saw the fire and the fireplace. Asia, do you think he's upset? Zinovy? I doubt it. When he's upset he takes on a more antisocial attitude or just trains to get even a little. Irina. What will happen to him? She said, something worried about the boy. Fibba. Girls, what are you doing? She said, appearing on the scene. Zenobia. Nothing very important, but shouldn't you be with Buchu? She said, looking at the blonde next to you. You. Well, actually we just came to give you a message from Buchu. He wants you to go out to the city to buy some things. Zenobia. Wait, can we go out to the city like nothing happened? Kiba? Well, obviously we will be watched by some vampires. Plus Buchu thinks it would be a good time to clear our mind, she said simply. Irina? By the way, Kiba, do you think Issei-kun? She said, looking at Issei, a little worried. Kiba? No, he's not upset, she said, looking at Issei. He's just thinking, she said simply. Asia? Really? Isn't she mad at us yet? Don't worry, it's been a few days. But I guess she's thinking about something else, she said, looking at how Issei was blank. Azazel? Maybe he's thinking about his next victim, he said mockingly as he came out of a hologram with Roswas. Maybe he's thinking about seducing the leader of the Teeps clan. All. No way, they said, annoyed. Zenobia, we won't let that happen, Irina. No bloodsucker will confront Issei-kun. Azazel? Well, leave it alone. Knowing him, it shouldn't be anything very important. I'm Skip. We see how Issei, along with the trio from the church, Roswas and Yuri, walked through the city. The residents looked at them with curiosity and a bit of surprise, some with contempt, but they were only heading to the shopping center, while one Roswas had little stars on her eyes when looking at some stores that were similar to those that only pay 100 yen. After Roswas bought all kinds of things, the boys continued on their way, and Issei had to admit that even though it was a vampire facility, they had a lot of merchandise for human consumption. Irina? Where did Issei-kun go? She said, looking for the albino. The girls looked for Issei for a few moments, but at that moment an Issei appeared with Lilith while he carried her on her shoulders. Everyone? That's Lilith. Essie. Hello girls, look who I found, she said, while the loli ate a chocolate on top of Essie. Bairi? Issei-kun, that is? Essie. Yes, she is the bodyguard of the old man from Rizavin, she said simply. Irina? And why do you have it on top of your shoulders? Issei. I met her there and I offered her some sweets. After that she didn't want to leave me, so I just gave her sweets, and she hugged me for some reason, she said, while pulling Issei's hair to get me to give her another sweet. Yes, here, giving him another chocolate bar. Asia? Jijujai. How cute it is, as if she would carry her daughter, she said, looking at Issei next to Office. At that moment, each of the girls imagined a somewhat more mature Issei carrying his children on his shoulders, making them blush. A while later the boys arrived at a restaurant. The group ate a couple of dishes, while Lofus only copied what Issei did. Issei only had a drop of sweat on the back of his neck since he looked like a cute little sister trying to imitate Issei. His older brother, after they finished eating, Issei wiped Lilith's mouth, causing most people to think that little Lilith was her daughter. Rose was? I feel like I should be worried about this. But she said, looking at how little Lilith was sitting on Issei's lap, this doesn't surprise me anymore. Irina? Well, it's Issei. For some reason he attracts all the girls. After a while Lilith begins to smell Issei's body, which makes the boys strange. Issei? I don't have any more cookies, Gary, she said jokingly. Lilith? The same smell as Lilith, she said, surprising everyone since it was the first time she spoke. The girls smelled Dissei's body unexpectedly, which was very similar to Office. Lilith. You smell like nostalgia red and big, the smell of a red dragon. Dissei. I don't smell like great red smells like me, she said with a smile. Lilith. Boy, it smells like candy and cookies, she said looking at Essie. Essie. I'm not just any guy, I'm Essie. Haidu, the only one in detergent, and they are Asia, Yuri, Zenobia, Irina and Rossweiss, he said pointing to the girls. Lilith. Issei? She said confused. Issei? Exactly, he said, stroking the loli's head. The girl at that moment got up and started walking towards the exit. Issei, are you going home? Lilith. Rizvan, protect Lilith's duty, she said without looking back. I am Skip. After finishing their purchases they returned to the castle, whereupon they returned the fallen man, and the Redid were waiting for them. Azazel? How did it go? She said looking at the boys, Irina and Zenobia. Very strange. Rose was? Although it is just as we thought, no one knows about the coup d'etat. Azazel? It seems strange to me that they weren't desperate or somewhat upset by these events, he said seriously. Aspar? Azazel-sensei, he said, drawing the attention of the fallen and the others, Marius, and promised to free Valerie. Isn't it great? He said innocently and with a smile. Azazel? I see, he said with a smile. After the little vampire spoke, the man called Rias, Okino and Issei, to talk something in private. Well, we know that idiot will not completely keep his word, he said to both girls would get angry. Marius must surely be planning to remove the Holy Grail from her body. Issei. That bastard will kill her in the process, he said angrily. Rias? We must tell Gasper, that despicable vampire lying to Gasper like that, she said angrily. Issei. Yes, but we have to be careful, not because they will hurt him, but because he can use Valerie as a hostage, he said, impressing the three with his deduction. Hostages, likewise, and to top it all off, he has an evil dragon as his backguard. We have to make a plan, he said seriously. Bikino and Rias. He's so hexy when he takes things seriously and head on, she said, looking at Issei with heart-shaped eyes. Azazel? And do you have a plan? Issei only stayed silent for a few moments to laugh devilishly, which made a shiver run down the spines of both girls since that same laugh was used when Issei punished them. Issei? Yes, I have one, but we will have to have an escape route just in case, he said, returning to his serious face. After a while of discussing the information that the fallen man got and the information that he sent to the demon faction about the location of the ancient male, a magic circle with the Citri symbol appeared on the ceiling of the room. Benya, ready. It took me a long time to make an escape route that will connect this room with the outside, but it's done, Issei. Well done, Benya, he said, congratulating the Shinigami, making her blush. At one point the circle began to glow, missing the boys, but a certain blonde vampire emerged from it. Amenhold, Kaya. Issei only managed to catch the vampire in her arms, but Mocha and Sukun also came out of the magic circle. Sukun fell face first onto the ground while Matcha fell on top of him, cushioning his fall. Greg. It's raining little white women, this must be a gift from the world for Issei. Bizarra? Shut up, Greg. Issei. Guys, she said happily as she watched her two childhood friends arrive. Olmenhild, put me down. She demanded the vampire as she touched down again after being caught by was about to hug Matcha and Sukun, but at that moment he became tense as he saw Matcha's hair color and saw that it was platinum. Mocha? But look what we have here, he said while putting his issei against the wall. You know, I don't know how much muscle you've gotten in these years, but I'd like to fill that body of yours with bites, he said, while he licked his lips predatorily. Before the girl could do anything else, he snapped her fingers to make chains come out of her and trap her, thus stopping the vampire. Ui. Stay away from our blood-sucking master, Lin. We are the only ones who can make marks on Master's body. After they put the crucifix on Mocha, he returned to normal and apologized for the attitude of her counterpart to start talking about the important issue they had to resolve. I'm glad that everyone is well, she said, to look at the albino and look away with a blush on her face. There is something important that I want to report to you, she said. It would be we have received information from Marius Teep's faction. He plans entered the final phase with the help of the Holy Grail. Issei, are you planning to summon servants to dominate the world or something, Azazel? Well, let's say it's a little more complicated. Asper? Final phase. Amenhold. Yes, they plan to take the Holy Grail from Valerie in order to take complete control over this country. He plans to rebuild its civilian population, he said it would be. Issei. Rebuild your population. Azazel? Shit, I didn't expect that. If he does it, we're in trouble, Issei. I don't understand. Do you plan to stop being a vampire along with the others in this population? Azazel. No, it will simply eliminate all the weaknesses of the vampires. They will be able to walk under the sun, and the stakes and holy water would no longer work on them. Basically, they would be more powerful than the Phoenix, or the high-class demons, he said seriously. Jasper? And what will happen when they extract the Holy Grail from Valerie? There was an awkward silence at that moment, but Issei just sighed to speak. Issei? She will die, she said, leaving the little vampire in shock. When they do, they will kill her, so we have to prevent that from happening, he said seriously. The little damper could only lower his head with rage while he let out some tears out of helplessness. Issei, seeing that, only went to him and caressed his head a little. The little vampire only felt rage, and even though he tried not to let the tears come out, he couldn't be strong like his senpai taught him, and only the tears came out, while he also felt angry for himself for being so stupid to believe that this idiot would leave his friend free. While Gasper calmed down, a light came out on the outskirts of the castle, and when they looked out the window, they only saw a magic circle. Azazel. They already made their first move, they are about to start the ritual. Olmenhild. The battle is about to begin, you must leave, Azazel. We both know that such a request is useless. Lomenhild. I know, but there was nothing to lose by trying. After all, vampires must solve their own issues. But Gasper Vlodi, she said looking at Gasper, do you wish to recover the Holy Grail and Valerie Tips? Gasper, hey, said determined senpai, please help me be a man. Help me save Valerie, he said looking at the albino. Issei at that moment just nodded, so he snapped his fingers. At that moment the little Cerberus returned to his original form while Lamia looked at Gasper's face. Essie. Good, then let your brother take care of it, he said with a smile. All. Brother? Sisiyun? He you never change? Bu, are you trying to replace me? He said with some tears about to come out. I say. Stop saying stupid things. I only see Gasper more than a partner or a friend. I see him as family and a little brother, he said, caressing his head. Elmenhild? Well, if Gasper Vlade wants to go, then he allows all of you to accompany him. I entrust you with this mission to protect and help Gasper Valdi, he said somewhat arrogantly as he headed towards Benya. Anyway, if you didn't let us, we would simply ignore you and ignore you, he said, watching the vampire get a little upset. Lomenhold. Shut up, Baka Baka. Issei. He well, vampire girl, can I ask you a favor? He said looking at the girl. Lomenhold. What do you want? He said she while looking away while having a blush on her face. I say. Can Sukyun go out and play? He said with some mockery directed at the boy. Sukyun? Shut up, idiot, don't say it like that, she's not my mother or something. I can go wherever the gift hits me, and if I want to fight I do it, Olmenhild. Shut up, Acacia. Sukyun? Why yes, ma'am, he said lowering his head, Olmenhild. Do you want Acacia to get into this problem? I say, no, it's just for her to give us a hand. Olmenhild. Do you think I'm your messenger? Besides, she said as her blush increased, whispering, and my name is Olmenhild, you must remember that. I say, I understand. Then please, Miss Olmenhild, can you let that idiot sit you and help me clean my shoes? She said as she knelt down, making the girl blush even more. Suchuin? How do you clean your shoes? Olmenhild, shut up, Acacia. Sukuin. Why, yes, ma'am, she said, becoming silent again. Olmenhild. Well, if you say it that way, I won't be able to refuse, she said, and it's underway after all. Ikayaya. The girl screamed as she was teleported through the magic circle because of a jealous Binia. Binia? The place where she connects it is the roof of another house, she said, looking at the other girls who were also jealous. All, well done, I see. So that means Azazel? Yes, apparently he gave you permission to hunt vampires. Essie only lowered his head so that a small laugh turned into a devilish laugh that upset everyone a little. Essie, everything according to plan. Essie had a big, somewhat crooked smile, while the Death Note soundtrack was playing in the background while she gave Benio an apple. Issei just snapped his fingers for his vampire hunting clothes to appear. Issei. Time to hunt vampires. Art 53, Issei Van Helsing. In the large Teeps mansion you can see a white-haired man with a revolver in his hand while he was fuming, and several vampire bodies were behind him. Issei had a big sadistic smile, while his companions were behind him witnessing Issei's massacre. Sukyun? Is this how Issei always? He said, looking at his companions who only nodded their heads. Pyru. Issei-kun is always like this when he's in the middle of a battle. Padis. Although it's the first time I've seen him smile so much. The albino only looked at the unconscious and badly injured bodies of several of the guards, while his companions only saw that with a drop of sweat on the back of their necks, since Issei named himself Issei Van Helsing. Issei. Wow, and he thought vampires would be stronger than this. What a waste of time, he said while walking. Azazel? Issei, damn, don't kill them. Remember that they are innocent. Issei, don't worry, they're just unconscious and have bullet holes in their bodies. Nothing that a good night's sleep won't fix for them, he said simply. But they're very weak. Mocha? They are low-level vampires, the strong ones are lower down. Azazel? Issei, we are wasting a lot of time. I know you get carried away, but you don't remember the main mission, he said, looking discreetly at Gasper. Issei? Sigh, yes, I know, he said, somewhat annoyed at not being able to hunt more vampires to his liking. Well, Rugal, Binia, Kirawu and Caddis will take care of the rest. We will continue on our way. The four. High count on us. At that moment Binia took out the scythe at him, but Rugal got into a fighting stance while his muscles grew. The boy's hair grew little by little, while his fangs sharpened like daggers. I say. Wait, he is? Azazel? That's right, he's a werewolf. Virgil? Io. Virgil had totally changed, and now he was the size of Cerberus. Issei just looked at that with star-shaped eyes that made him look cute to the girl's eyes. Issei just hugged Drugal while he caressed him, which made the werewolf start to like Issei's caresses. Issei, cute wolf, he said while petting the werewolf. Azazel. Issei, we are in the middle of a damn fight. Irina. Nothing can be done. Issei loves dogs, she said, looking at Issei. Zenobia. True, he loves animals, especially dogs. I guess since Rugal is a wolf he is very happy. Issei just climbed onto Rugal's back as everyone looked on. Rudel? Ready, Issei? Always a la carga. Issei took off on Rudolph's back while they both began defeating vampires with ease and full view of all their other companions. Time skip. We see how the Gremry group walked through the corridors with Issei still on Rudolph's back. But there came a time when the boys separated. The rest reached the stairs that lead to the rooms under the castle. Upon reaching the doors, they noticed that there were some guards and they had to face them to pass, but they were much stronger than the previous ones, which they noticed. EW. Sigh. This was more complicated, he said while Kiba was next to him, somewhat agitated by the fight against the vampires. Mocha? We already said it, the strongest vampires are on the lower floors of the mansion, he said it would be. Kiba? By the way, where is Issei? Themia? They are both in the throne room. Issei-kun said that he wanted to take some photos and recreate a scene from Castlevania, he said with a bead of sweat on the back of his neck. The boys continued walking until they reached a somewhat empty room, but it was full of vampires, and they could also hear a voice familiar to the boys. "Brendel? Moo, but look what we have here," he said, looking at the boys. "They are these brats from before. Hello, Drake, I would like to fight with you, but I have one thing pending with that albino and that idiot Fafnir," he said, looking for both. "Greg." "Shit, Tibba, he's busy, but we'll kill you instead," he said with a smile, taking out the white sword from him. You're just an idiot who will soon be sliced to death," he said, taking out the black sword from him. "Brendel? Little snacks, well, come here, brats." Both boys launched themselves against the dragon. Both swordsmen matched the ferocity of the dragon's attacks by cutting its skin. Grendel, seeing that his enemies were fountains, only smiled to increase his strength and ferocity. The dragon released a large flame of fire that Yu and Kiba dodged, but was still heading towards Issei's other companions. "Kaneko. Bachu Rias? Hi." By saying those simple words, Kaneko's body began to glow so that the fire would be dissipated by the lowly Nico. But when the glow faded, it showed a more mature Kaneko with an excellent body. Aniko jumped to give a strong blow to the dragon's jaw, sending it flying a couple of meters, surprising the boys with the albina's new strength. "Brendel. Not bad, girl," she said, getting up, "but that is not enough." The dragon tried to crush the Nico, but he dodged her attack to launch magical attacks at the dragon. Rias knew that Kiba or Yowu could against the dragon, but the problem was protecting others, since if an attack from that monster harmed any of his friends, they had few ways to heal them. "Rias? Damn ice, where are you?" Piba and Yuyu had at one point cut the dragon's throat, and when they thought they had killed it, it just laughed to continue its fight. The Zara with her armor also fought hand to hand against the dragon, causing him problems. But every time he was hit, he seemed to like it, not in a strange or perverted way, in a sick and deranged way, as if every time he landed a blow or he was hit, this one will enjoy it. In short, this dragon enjoyed the fight so much that it is not interested in getting hurt. Greg, boost X50. Azara. Dragon shoot. The chestnut launched a large sphere of power that made a huge explosion. The entire place shook while a cloud of smoke formed in the place from the chestnut's attack. Grendel. A very good attack. It would have killed any dragon, he said as he came out of the smoke screen with a big hole in his shoulder. But I'm not anyone. The dragon launched itself again with more force, causing some difficulties for both swordsman and Azara. Only a couple of minutes had passed, which for our companions were eternal. The dragon had increased its level by fighting, causing difficulties for the boys. An automata managed to burn one of its legs next to its left wing, but that was not enough. The Nakamata was already getting tired and running out of energy, since this transformation was difficult for it to maintain, which caused it to be an easy prey for the evil dragon. Brendel. Now it's my turn to burn you, Brad. The dragon inhaled all the air he could, inflating his stomach, giving the understanding that he was going to launch a large burst of fire. Azazel? Everyone cover yourself, he said, creating a barrier to protect himself. The others did the same, but Kaneko had fallen to her knees from exhaustion while he returned to his normal form. Here he is, Kaneko. I'm slowed down to the point where you could see small black flames peeking out of Grendel's mouth. Kaneko. I'm sorry, Issei-kun, I wasn't strong enough, he said while letting small tears fall. Everyone could see how the dragon was about to launch its great flare, but at that moment the ceiling was broken so that a certain white-haired man appeared and stuck Yui in her mouth, preventing him from being able to open it. Everyone looked at Issei with eyes full of hope, Issei pinning Yui deeper into the dragon's face, preventing it from being able to launch its flame of fire or even speak. Issei. He sighed. It's good that you're on time, he said with a smile. Go, but took Kaneko and backed away with her while he still looked at Issei. Issei. Kaneko, are you okay? He said, looking at the Nico. Kaneko. Hi, she said, happy to see Issei again, but Issei-kun is bad with a pouch. She couldn't see my Shurin mode. She was anxious for him to see me. Issei? He's sorry, I was a little busy, she said, scratching the back of her neck. Issei was still standing on Grendel's head, and the dragon could only growl as he could not move and tried to use all his strength to hit Issei. But unfortunately his tailor arms were not that long. Issei, what's wrong, idiot? She said, looking at Grendel. Can't you get up? The dragon just growled, but at that moment Issei took out his revolver and aimed it at his right eye. At that moment everyone saw how Issei had a ring on his right hand that began to generate electricity, filling Blue Rose with lightning. Bro Swiss? Wait for that ring, said in shock. Azazel? What's wrong? Braswis? That ring and those engravings on it coming out of shock. Those engravings are only worn by the nobility of Odin, Sama, she said, leaving everyone in shock. Everyone? What? The nobility of Odin, Azazel? So? Braswas? Yes, Issei-kun is now considered a member of Odin Sama's family. Only the closest relatives can wear one. Issei just smiled to pull the trigger of his revolver, causing a great glow to come out of it so that Grendel's eye exploded, leaving him one-eyed. The dragon only roared with fury, while Lissy jumped back, taking Yui back to her friends. Lissy, it seems that you already know it. Yes. And it is made of the same metal as Blue Rose, one of a kind. The video, Odin told me that he will use it when he needs it. It has the ability to create lightning and unlimited electricity. Perfect for load blue roses. Bullet said with a smile. Flash black. Issei was alone in his room looking at a small package that Odin sent him. When he opened it he only saw the ring with strange writings, along with the instructions on how to use it written by Odin. The boy just smiled, but at that moment he saw another letter, a special letter addressed to him. Letter from Odin. Please take care of Hela for me. I did not have the courage to treat her like a daughter, nor the wisdom to know how to take care of her. I know that you will take care of her well and that you will make her very happy. I entrust her to you. End letter. Essie just sighed to put on the ring and look at the letter again. Essie. I promise you that I will take care of her and make her happy, old man. And flash black Essie. And also only I can lift the ring since it is also enchanted, he said with a smile. Brendel, bucking brat, you took my eye away, now I will kill you, he said as his claws sharpened even more. Essie. Well, don't worry, now your head will roll on the ground. Essie just raised his hand for a large slash of red and blue lightning to come out of the ring. Azazel, this is a lot of lightning, this is bad. The albino just smiled while he felt the lightning running through his body and heading towards the revolver, loading it with great energy. I say, it's the first time I'm going to use a tank as strong as it is with powers I barely know, so I hope you just bucking die. Rendell. You have a lot of balls, boy. I haven't had a battle like this in a while. Let's see how long you can last. The dragon inhaled air again to spit out a large amount of flames. The boys worried about Issei, but at that moment they saw how the lightning dispersed the fire, preventing it from even touching him. Azazel? Everyone down, I say. Jackpot? As he said that, 2 bullets came out of both barrels of the revolver, one of different colors, which headed towards the dragon. Brendel! Aye! The dragon screamed loudly while a light struck everyone present. A great earthquake hit the entire place while the light was still cutting everyone. Luckily, the impact was not strong enough to bring down the castle, but it had surely gone through many walls of the mansion. The large screen of smoke covered the entire place, and when it vanished, the boys only saw how Grendel's body was completely destroyed, leaving only his head. I say, I told you that, didn't I? I told you that your head would roll on the ground, she said with a smile. Grendel, you are a son of it. Was a good fight, boy. I admit my defeat, said the dragon while his head is on the ground. There he is. Why doesn't he die? He should be dead, he said, looking that the dragon was still alive after that issei attack. Issei was about to answer, but at that moment a piercing voice caught everyone's attention. Grendel, return and restore your body, said a man, or rather a dragon. Azazel? Crom Cruchy said he would be looking at the dragon. Issei raised his right hand to burn and kill Grendel once and for all, but at that moment, he was strongly taken by the dragon. Issei. He's very fast, he said, surprised by his speed since he was several meters away from him, and noticed a blink next to him. Issei threw a blow at his face that made him retreat, but the dragon only returned the blow sent to fly Issei several meters back. Issei, thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.